Hey there. Welcome to the second episode of the TPJ Show. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's the Patriot Jihadi Show. I'm your host, Sean Pardesi. That's just what I go by. I don't want to say my whole name because it's probably going to break YouTube or any kind of device that you are watching this on. In this episode, we're going to go over policing and how it has changed over the last 30 years. Who I have with me on this episode is my old partner that I worked with for a long time. His name is Curtis Dinger. And then have another officer from Texas, Charles Taylor, who's been on for about 5 years. And we're going to compare the difference between how things were back in the day in comparison to how things are now, the training aspect of it or lack thereof when it comes to certain dynamics in relation to law enforcement training and just the job itself as a whole. You guys ready? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Curtis and Charles both kind of introduce themselves a little bit, give you a little background. I do want to make one thing clear. This is a podcast where we're talking about police work. Any statements that are made are not to be reflected on the agency where the guests are. They're not representing the agency, basically. Okay. I hate being formal. I just hate that shit.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It happens.
It happens, you know, because
yeah,
I'm not a news guy.
Politically correct.
No, I'm just not a news guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just go ahead and let him introduce himself, and then Charles is going to introduce himself, and then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. Go ahead.
AKA Dinger. Been policing 25 years. I had a break in service during that, did some overseas contracting. Majority of my time has been teaching, handling a dog, working narcotics in some form of fashion.
You want to go ahead and tell them right off the bat that Dinger is the bull in a china cabinet.
I do tear stuff up. It happens. It happens.
Right. So just before
the
we go
magnet.
To right. So before we go to Charles, if I remember correct, not only you was working patrol, you've worked motors.
I did.
Right?
Did.
You've been like captain.
I have.
Right? You've been a chief of police.
I have.
You have served overseas, not only in military capacity, but contractor capacity in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Correct.
And for my Middle Eastern viewers, that's Iraq and Afghanistan. But I have to say it because we are in the country, okay? If I speak too Middle Eastern, I might not make it out of the rural area. You know what I'm saying?
Shut up.
But anyway.
So stupid.
It's the truth.
Yeah, right.
So you spent time in Afghanistan.
I did.
So you do have some insight on the culture and things like that.
A little bit.
Because as we get through this, obviously, we're going to talk about training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to kind of roll us into cultural training and communication training.
Right.
Which all of that is going to play a role into the bigger picture that we're going to discuss, right?
Absolutely. It was a learning experience for me, which
so you're not
back.
Right. So you're not just a bull in the china cabinet giving an opinion. You've actually been there and you've ate the fish that was cooked in the dirt by the Kurds, right?
I have, yes.
Right. The one that tastes like shit,
yes,
but everybody eats. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that too. All right. So Charles, you want to kind of...
Yeah. So my name's Charles Taylor. I work here in East Texas. I've been in policing for about 5 years now. I was at a small agency. I work at a sheriff's office now. There's a little bit of difference between those two for sure. Just happy to be here and learn from you guys with all the experience.
Did you serve any time in the military?
I did not.
No. Okay. So as all your policing has to do with like East Texas type policing?
Yeah, I wasn't a cop anywhere else. I came here to East Texas. My wife and I moved here. And
you got a degree, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I have a degree in psychology from A&M Kingsville.
You were down in South Texas.
Yeah, I've lived all over Texas. Yeah,
I've
lived in South Texas. I lived in Central. I'm from Central Texas originally.
What part? Like what area?
Central Texas?
Yeah.
Austin? Yeah, the Austin area.
Oh, shit.
So
he's been to San Francisco.
Yeah. I embody the weirdness.
He's well versed.
Oh, yeah. I got it.
So you ain't from like deep East Texas?
No. I've been, like I said, I've lived all over Texas.
Okay, so you're not the kind that goes, well, you ain't from around here, are you?
No, I don't say that. Only in a joking manner once in a while.
he actually a white boy that knows there's other cultures around out there.
Once
Hair
in a while.
banjos.
Bro, that's getting up out the like way out in the woods of East Tennessee, man. I've been around all over the place. That would be the kind of first place where I'd be
Taylor's
like,
new to our unit. How long you been in the unit now?
What, 3 months now?
3 months.
3 months.
yeah. So both of y'all work interdiction. Okay. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is another interdiction podcast. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because, yeah, interdiction, somebody's horn is going off. You got Middle Eastern people living around here?
Probably. It's probably your van.
No. That was too much of a wimpy horn for it to be my van. But no. Because we were talking about this last night with the podcast with the two Middle Eastern. Oh, no, was it that was the video we did the other day? Talking about that my folks just cannot lay off the horn. So when I hear too much horn and it's not an alarm, I always go, my cousins, man. My cousins. They just can't let it go. Beep, 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 beep.
Well,
You remember that?
yeah.
Huh? You remember when you were doing the
The
convoys?
jingle trucks. baby.
Jingle trucks. All right. So you've got some background as far as like a variety of different cultures, which being in East Texas actually helps you because you don't have like, I don't want to call it closed-minded because people really aren't closed-minded. They just are not experienced.
Yeah, I had my culture shock in South Texas. So coming from Austin, I lived in a predominantly like white, area. And then when I went to South Texas, every other person speaking Spanish, they have a different way of talking to you. I mean, and I don't say that like, I mean, it was just different. Their way of communicating is different. Their jokes are different. It was,
You'd never encountered machismo.
no, I hadn't. I honestly, God, hadn't. I mean, everybody was different, and then the dating pool was different too.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. Like I said, it was going from my white suburbia to down south, which was, I mean, like I said, it was legitimately a culture shock.
Did you learn some cuss words when you first got out there?
A few, yeah.
Yeah, like pendejo and
Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah, those, yeah. But I played on a baseball team, and that was another, so we had guys that were from Cuba and stuff like that.
Oh,
that
yeah,
were,
Cubans over
like
there, too.
legitimate Cubans, like dudes
Oh,
that came over
wow.
here on rafts and stuff, and they were, it was different getting to talk to those guys as opposed to just Hispanics from Texas and then Hispanics from the Valley. So that was my first big culture shock.
So I guess collectively we're not representing like just a small aspect of law enforcement from like a rural perspective.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be different if we were sitting here talking to somebody who started their law enforcement career in like, I don't know, Jefferson, Texas,
Mhm.
right? And grew up in Jefferson, Texas, never left Jefferson or that county, and then got into law enforcement. I could see where there would be some limitations as to experiencing other cultures unless they just happen to be on 59 stopping a car, somebody coming from Chicago or something, right? Right. So, but you having been around, it actually has kind of broadened your knowledge that not everybody thinks the same way.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Dinger, we were talking when we started developing the class, the Chameleon Cop,
Mm-hmm.
and we can get into the training. And when it comes to training old school versus training now.
Yep.
And you tell me if I'm wrong, I think when we got into law enforcement, you didn't have the influx of people from other parts of the country just constantly moving around and occupying other places. When I say occupy, for the Middle Eastern people that are watching, we're not talking about colonialization, okay? We're talking about occupying as in like moving from one state to the other. So don't get too excited, okay? So, because every time you say occupy, oh my God, colonial West. And I'm like, dude, shut up, sit down. Here we go, we're talking about something else. But what I'm talking about is like, when I started in Houston, right? There wasn't a lot of like influx of people from all over the place coming to Houston, right? It wasn't until like the mid 90s when you had like an influx of people coming from like the Silicon Valley to like Austin area. And they started moving. That's when Dell moved here.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
And you could see the shift in like 5 years' time. The entire culture of Austin, which used to be Texas country, Ariat boots and, cinched freaking britches, it went to skinny jeans, Converse shoes, and pink hair and blue hair and piercings all through the nasal passages and all kinds of crevices. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
6th Street, It used to be you go get a drink and listen to country music.
Ride the
kinda.
mechanical bull.
Ride the mechanical bull, right? And now the 6th Street is you got to have a medical marijuana card to get passage to go in now. Is that how it works?
I guess. I hadn't been to Austin in a minute. I try when I go down to San Antonio, I go around it.
You go around you go around that
Yeah.
what is that, Texas Expressway?
That toll road.
The
yeah.
toll road,
Like
yeah.
80 miles an hour.
Yeah, because I think the last time I heard, with 6th Street, and I was there, I saw it happen, and that's when the whole term would keep Austin weird. You remember that bumper sticker people
Oh,
used to have
yeah,
says "Keep
yeah.
Austin weird," and I'm like, what do you mean weird? Being country ain't weird. But then it dawned on me what they were talking about because it turned weird in like a year.
Was
Boom.
it San Antonio? The last MVC I went to was. I think you were right in evading honesty then. That was it San Antonio or was it? It was San Antonio, not Austin. Never mind.
Bro, you're talking 12, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I don't go to
I don't
conferences
remember what
anymore.
I ate for dinner last night
I don't go
unless
to
I look at
conferences
the
anymore.
receipt.
Yeah.
The
No,
only
that
thing-
was like 15, wasn't it?
That's still 10 years ago.
Yeah, true.
Look at here.
You are getting
Look at
old.
here. Hey, look. You see this?
The
It's
hearing
called the
aids?
pill organizer. I even got to get that shit in my pocket so I don't forget my cholesterol medicine, my high blood pressure medicine.
No comment.
No comment. You just don't care. You just run over shit. He's like, it's insured.
No, I don't do that.
But so we were talking about creating that Chameleon Cop.
Right?
When we went to the academy, God, I hate that ADHD shit. We just like squirrel off into something else and
Oh,
then
yeah.
forget what we started for.
It
But
happens
when
all
we
the time.
started, even at the academy level, most of the training was just focused on dealing with the community that people are already involved in, right? So even when I went to the academy in Houston, Houston had a specific culture, right? But then as you see time go along and this influx of people from other parts of the United States, and we'll use Texas because we're in Texas, start moving into Texas, you see the shift in the culture. Houston goes from being ultra conservative to now literally like you might as well be in freaking LA County.
Right.
Right? Harris County has turned into LA County, while Austin has turned into San Francisco Bay Area. You know what I'm saying? But that didn't exist 30 years ago.
No.
But I think what has happened is society keeps advancing and there's a mixture where people are starting to kind of intermingle with each other. So people are getting exposed to other cultures. But yet law enforcement training still stuck in the 70s of focusing on make sure you do enough push-ups, make sure you know how to do shuffle steering. You know what I'm saying? And then make sure that you know the procedure so you don't get sued because vicarious liability runs everything, right? But yet, you look at the academy curriculum, it's always about how to respond to something, not necessarily how to communicate, right? That's why we came up with that Chameleon Cop, because as society changes,
Yep.
people from outside start having an influx into other cultures, but the people who grew up in that area are not familiar with that culture, but rather than being trained to understand that people have different thought processes, right? You learned that the hard way by moving around.
Yes.
So it helps you in law enforcement because you're not stuck in this. Everybody has to have the mentality and the outlook of someone who lives in East Texas.
Yes.
Right. But you could see where, like, at least for me, as people younger, how old are you?
30.
30.
Yeah.
You look at like a 25-year-old or a 22-year-old, somebody gets into law enforcement. When you and I went to school, if we had a class project, they broke us up into like 5 or 6 people. And then we had to sit around a round table. We would go to like the library and then, okay, you got to cover these 5 topics.
The library.
The library. Remember that? Remember the index
Index
cards?
cards.
The index cards. Remember that shit?
Yeah.
So you would have like 5 topics and then you would divvy out the 5 topics. One person would go get the index card for that topic and they would get all the books and you would sit all in
Do
the
you even know
round.
what an encyclopedia is?
I do know what it is.
Do you know what an encyclopedia?
Yeah, so I actually, in between those, like where people wouldn't know now, like we still use encyclopedias. Where I was
Encyclopedias?
going. We
I was
just
just
had
curious.
computers at like towards the end.
So
they
he
were-
started like in the hybrid process.
Yeah,
right?
right, yeah.
Now you say encyclopedia, it has to
Now
be
we're
a
in the
dot
electric
com.
vehicle process.
Now it has to have a .com at the end of it. It's not like go to the shelf and grab it off the
Well,
bookshelf.
I'm like AI. I'm still trying to figure that stuff out. Do you
Bro, I
use
give
it,
up on
Chet?
it. I give up on it.
You
I
know,
give up. You can't speak hillbilly to AI.
one of the guys I work with is the one that showed me that stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's insane.
Can
what
be
it
really
does for
useful.
you. Huh?
It can be really useful.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so.
if you use it right, it can be.
They
super
even
useful.
got a law one too. I hadn't looked at it.
Bro, My AI, I was on TikTok and I was looking at it, and look, we squirreled off again.
It happens.
ADHD.
We'll get back
If
to
you're-
training in a minute.
If you're watching and you're not a cop, 99% of police officers, anybody in law enforcement, ADHD. That's like number one problem. So this is probably one thing you as a civilian, especially as a Middle Eastern, need to keep in mind is dynamics of conversation changes. It is literally like TikTok. As soon as you swipe, 30 seconds later, mind is somewhere else. This is how it goes. Cops that are watching, they're going to be like, holy shit, he's right.
But it's not a squirrel trail because we were literally talking about generational gaps.
Right.
And I asked him if he knew about
Well,
encyclopedias
right.
because you were talking about that there's a generational gap there.
But the problem is now we went there and I don't remember what the we were started out with. That may just be old age.
Talk about breaking up into groups.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Talking about the
yeah.
academy process.
You're talking about
Yeah.
socializing.
Right. So we were forced to
Yes.
socialize with 5 other people while we did research.
I think it's Gen X. Is that what it is?
I have no idea what this next generation is called.
I can't even keep up, like I said, with which one of my
We're Gen
omeprazole
X, yeah.
pills I was supposed to take. But seriously, back then, but we were forced to actually communicate. Like if one person worked on one topic, they would work on the topic for 2 hours and write down the paragraph and a summary. And then we would all have to sit there and say, okay, you went over this topic. What does yours say? And then you would elect one person to kind of put it all together, which forced you to have conversation. You go back 15 years ago, somebody who's 22 years old, this was the conversation in the class. Everybody sitting at the table, not even communicating with the dude right here or the girl right here. They're just put your earphones on and just do this. So imagine that 22-year-old guy who didn't have that experience like you had with being all over the place and like offsetting what was lacking in the education system. The person who doesn't have that experience now becomes a police officer and doesn't realize from one call, you could be at a Mexican's house. The next call, you're in a guy's house from Pakistan. The next call, you're in a native's house. The next call, you're in a black dude's house. And the next call, you're at a white dude's house who's from LA. The next call, you're at a female's house from San Francisco. The next call, you're at a Mexican guy who grew up in Chicago, because that's going to affect how his culture operates too. You know what I'm saying? And the problem is, they don't understand that everyone has to be approached differently. You know what I'm saying? So I look back at it and go, how do you educate cops? Well, you got to open up their eyes that not everybody communicates the same. You know what I'm saying? You probably don't have a problem with that because you experienced it personally.
Yeah. Well, I did becoming a police, like, so, and not to, denigrate anybody, but the training that I had in the academy was very much East Texas centric. Most everybody was from there. The question I got most of the time was, why are you here? Why didn't you become a cop in Austin? It was strange that I left Austin to come, here.
Even in the academy.
Yeah,
they're
they're
like,
like,
"Come
yeah,
around
what do
here,
you do?
boy."
Yeah, so it's the same. So the same sort of thing, but I don't think it's that. I don't know that those guys didn't know that. We had a couple instructors that were very good about that. Instructor Bird is one that I remember. He would talk. Everybody's a little bit different. So there was sprinklings in of that when I went through the academy 6 years ago now. But I don't know if it's gotten better, but I can say I relate with you as far as the training goes. If I train a younger guy, that is a problem that I have is
Get him to click.
even just with me, the conversation, not
Right.
necessarily with everybody, but just conversation between the two of us sitting in the car.
Technology.
Yeah, it could be difficult and it's different,
Yeah. It's almost like interpersonal relations is never even focused upon in law enforcement training at all. But yet, make sure you know how to pick out deception, because that's how you build reasonable suspicion, right? Because so all the training is, if the guy goes, or the guy goes, or the guy goes, then he's lying, right?
Well, I mean,
yet, hold on. Listen to this. You got your license, where you? Guy goes, what in the hell? Why are you looking at me like that? Like literally inducing anxiety, but then applying the fact that, oh, well, he responded to my question, not realizing the lack of interpersonal relations and being able to read someone's reaction is actually what's contributing to that person having those responses, right?
Yeah.
What you thinking about, Dinger?
No, just that in general. There's been a shift in the way you conduct traffic stops over the years, period, and it's due to that. It's
Yeah.
with technologies, the socialization of people. I still, this day, I still remember, and this has been, what is this, 24, 25?
Yeah, we're in 25.
So it would have been around 13, 14. I remember I was at a school in Dallas, Frisco, leadership school, and my wife calls me. She got pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
And she's madder than a wet hen, got a ticket.
Okay, hold on. You say madder than a wet hen. Okay, somebody from East Texas, and I'm trying to be open-minded here, is going to be like, oh shit, that was funny. Some guy in Detroit, Michigan goes, especially an Arab dude with Dearborn PD goes, what the hell he say? What is madder than a wet hen? What the fuck is that?
She was
So
upset
why
that
don't
she
you
received a
explain?
citation from an officer for her violation.
And madder than a wet hen means what?
She was upset. And she's like, this guy was a dick. Like, all right, was he a dick, or you just upset that you got caught doing what you shouldn't have been doing? Well, I happen to know the supervisor of that unit. I called today, just look into this, blah, blah, blah. A couple of days later, I get a call once the video's downloaded. He said, man, it was fine. He goes, listen. But that particular agency, it's a standard. It's not that, it's the word I'm looking for. I'm trying to be nice here because I don't usually. We get trained a certain way to handle certain things, and
Well, it's conditioning.
Yeah,
It's conditioning.
yeah, okay, I'll go with that. It's a safe way of doing things, not to offend. If I do everything this way every time, then I'm not
Standardization.
wrong. Yeah,
Standardization, so nobody can say that you treated one better
different
than the other.
other. Absolutely. And then that creates it because once again we get into the cultural differences. Everybody's different. Every contact we make's different. So if I approach every contact the same way,
Mhm.
there's going to be a small percentage that are fine with it, but there's going to be a bigger percentage that think that I'm being the turd, and I'm
You're
the
just being an
traffic
ass, that you have
Nazi
no
or-
empathy.
Yes, there you go. Yep, yep. Well, kind of like what we talked about.
Yeah.
And back then, I think it was okay in the beginning of our careers.
Well, back then you didn't have people that were scrutinizing law enforcement's every action.
Right, because-
And there was an expectation for law enforcement to behave a certain way,
Yes.
to be equally, I guess they would enforce the law equally. So there was a big, huge push that there was going to be no favoritism.
Right. Fair, firm, and consistent.
Fair, right. And that people, the general public, understood that that's just a cop doing his job. Right.
I mean, you think about when we got into it, what was the standard when you pull somebody over, they'd get out of the vehicle and meet you at the back?
Yeah, 7-step violator contact.
And now you're like, no, stay in your car. It changes.
That's what blows people's minds in interdiction stuff, because I'd walk up and like, hey man, how's it going? You got your license with you? And they're like, you walked up, you didn't even do this. And I'm like, yeah, because I've got a specific target that I'm looking for. Well, what if, and you had them sit in the front seat of your car? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I can't believe that they could kill you. And I said, and he ain't a thug, right? Well, the hands can kill you. And I'm like, bro, listen, just worry about the chow hall. Let the operators operate, okay? Let the E4 guy that's doing the mashed potatoes do his mashed potatoes, and let the dev group guy mess with shit the way he needs to. I don't need the mashed potato guy telling the dev group guy, oh my God, you're not holding the M4 correctly, okay? You remember that? You remember the movie? I can't remember what the name of it is, where that Delta Force guy was in the chow hall and the sergeant, the
Black
Army
Hawk
sergeant,
Down.
Black Hawk Down, and he says, "Your guy's not on safety." He goes, "This is my safety." The same shit, right? But anyway, but you're right, because there was an expectation to have a standard approach. But society no longer expects that standard approach, because it's almost like you're missing the empathy part.
Well, I think social media had a big play in that. You got what? Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook,
Twitter, X,
Bruh,
whatever it's
screw all
called.
them.
X.
TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Oh yeah. The
The
cops on
tickety
TikTok
talk,
crack me up now.
The tickety talk, man. That's where it's at.
Yeah,
The
there's an
talk.
attorney out of Arkansas that I watch.
You're
You
talking
know what I'm
about
talking about?
Harris?
Dude, I love
Oh,
that
Harris.
guy, man.
Oh,
Dude, I love
I
that.
messaged him. I was
did
like,
you?
hey, man, you want to come get on the podcast? He
Oh.
never responded back.
Please. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh no, I love that dude. I
You know
watch
what?
his
You know
stuff.
what?
He's straight.
I'm sending you the link to this. Yeah. See, we're even giving you. Okay, everybody go. What was his name? I think it's
Yeah,
John.
I got him.
Is it John? I know his name is John.
My favorite was
Sorry,
where he's
John, I
talking
can't remember. I'm
about
old.
Pennsylvania versus Mims, and he's like, can the cops? Do I have to present my driver's license? And there's such, but literally, I stopped a lady not too long ago from up north, and as soon as it took me, ain't much takes me off guard. But when I walked up to the car, she's like, "Am I under arrest?" And no much stumped me. I'm like, "No, man, but you are detained, and they see your driver's license, your insurance."
John Collins. His name is John
Yes,
Collins.
yeah, I
And so
like that
John
guy.
Collins, when you get this is why. We're talking about you. Everybody who's going TikTok, go look for attorney John Collins and follow him.
Yeah,
He's a good
that dude's
dude.
straight.
Good dude. He
Yeah.
like says it like it is, and he's country too. That's
Oh,
what I
yeah.
like about him. You listen to him, you're like, where else is that hillbilly? And it's like, oh my God.
Well, if you don't want to hand them your license because you might have a little cocaine on.
He's so hilarious.
Yeah, it was
He used to
awesome.
be a cop.
Yeah. I watched some of his stuff. It's pretty good. So we just squirreled because now I lost my train.
You
of
were
thought.
talking about the lady you stopped,
Yeah,
and she was like, am I being
and
detained?
I literally at the end of that shit, I was like, get done with it, and I'm like, "Man, can I ask you a question?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "When I approach, before I get in, you're like, am I under arrest?" I said, "Why'd you do that?" TikTok. I was like, "Man, you need to quit.
Well, you know what it
Quit
is.
watching that stuff because it's gonna end up getting you in trouble."
You know what I like about John Collins? Even though he's a defense attorney,
Yep.
right? But he's a cop, and he actually addresses that because a lot of this shit with questioning cops and doing that whole attention with, am I being detained? Am I free to go? I'm
Yeah.
traveling. I'm
Yeah.
doing this. All of this started with social media. And then some of these criminal defense attorneys that are shitheads, they started picking it up and running with it.
Yep.
But now they're putting it out as a defense attorney, which makes people who would literally get in trouble for doing it feel empowered that they can question it. And what they're not realizing, Dinger, you know what it is? They're creating clients for themselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because they're instigating, do this, do that. You don't have to let them do this because they know the cops are going to find a way to do it illegally.
They're gonna call you.
They're going to do it legally. And then when they do it legally, the guy goes, well, I heard this attorney say that you could do that. I'm fixing to hire him to come and represent me. And the attorney over there is like, hell yeah, that TikTok marketing for me real good. You know what I'm saying? And if you're watching this and you know those anti-police people, there's the reason why they do that. Because call one up and ask them how much to represent me for this thing, because I was a jerk off and I ended up getting arrested because I told the guy off, and now he's going to say, oh, $15,000, I'll go ahead and represent you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
Marketing.
going to take care of it.
Yeah, we're going to take care of it. That's right.
So yeah, but I think the shift for us is the social media platforms, and now you can I can video one thing in Podunk, USA, and it is across the world in 30 seconds. You get a response.
Listen to this. That social media outreach is so far.
Yep.
That back in the day, when we worked in small towns, right, because there was no social media, you would hear about people trashing police in big cities because the news would jump on it, right? When news started becoming anti-police because of the ratings. But it never affected, communities like Henderson and Palestine and Palestine, Texas, not
Because it never
not
reached
Palestine overseas, right? Because it never reached. When I taught a class up in rural Tennessee back in January, the whole population of the county was like 16,000. The biggest city was like 2,000, right? That was like the county seat. And you have teenagers there that are acting like they're in fucking Chicago. That when they're getting stopped by a deputy or a police officer, they're popping off. What'd you stop me? Am I being detained? I want to talk to your supervisor. What's your name and badge number? Folks, this hell name and badge number bullshit is not law. I don't know where you get this, and you keep saying that, give me your name and badge number, it's the law. It may be a policy for some departments, but policies aren't across the board applicable to every agency. Every agency has different policies. So if you're
Just
hearing
because
this
you
shit,
asked for it don't mean the supervisor going to respond.
Yeah, I like that one dude. Have you seen how he says, "What's your name and badge number?" And he gives some cartoonish name, and then he gives him. There's one K9 guy up in Kansas that does that. You know, I don't want to say his name. It's K9 Ricky Bobby on TikTok, right? And it's like he'll be running a live, and somebody will pop in. You can tell it's some gamer at 3:00 in the morning in his mama's basement. And he goes, "I want your name and badge number." And he goes, I can't remember what cartoon character or somebody he gives, but then he goes, "It's 5309. What's the name of that? What's that song? You know,
Yeah, the old school
8675309. That's
5309.
my badge. Like straight up trolling them, man. And they get all upset. They're like, "You're supposed to, it's the law." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." And he's like trolling them back. But this whole culture of questioning the police and trying to create things is now affecting little towns of 5,000 people because anybody can open up a TikTok and they just start listening to it.
Yes, and they believe it.
And they believe it.
Yes.
Because TikTok said it. It's real.
It's gold. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the sad part. Once again, I mean, it just boils down to, it's a generational deal, and with social media and people sit there and they listen to it instead of researching themselves. And I can't go into it, but there's some crap going on now with some stuff that it's just, I look at the comments and I'm like, you're kidding me. You literally have no clue what's going on in your life or the world. But you think because you can get on, and unfortunately, we become a society. I don't know if you want to call it liability conscious, because people stir up enough smoke and it creates, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vicarious liability.
Yeah, vicarious liability. But
Well, it's the perception. So it gives a bad
it's a
perception.
bully. If I just sit back and close my eyes as an agency, that if I look at it, I just, it just goes on. But I think there's times that we can get ahead of stuff if we go out, because it, I see the comments, what do they call them, jackbooted thugs, or, pigs, whatever, man.
ACAB,
Yeah,
F12.
Yeah, you name it.
When I'm on TikTok trolling on my other accounts, I always say, "Hey, mama just called your Hot Pockets are ready."
Yeah, Cheetos are in the basement.
She said, "Go empty out your trash."
And it's literally sad, because as long as I've been in it, you were in it, he's coming up in it, and especially now. I mean, with we're still, everything's ever evolving with what we do. It never changes. And once again, it falls back on the cultural deal of knowing people, because you have an anti-police society.
Yeah.
And I'm like doing this podcast against protest, because I don't like doing it's like the Facebook Live. I was tired that night you did it. I wasn't even into it. I hate to see it though, because there's so many things that we can address and back up with what we do, and the general public is going to go, okay,
Makes
you
sense.
know what? Yes, you
Makes
know what?
sense.
It makes sense of what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Well, the problem
It's
is
not that we're out picking on any one individual, but the overall goal is to keep our areas, wherever you work, safe.
safe, right? And I think that has a lot to do with agencies not going out and actually, like you said, get in front of it and educate as to the reason why it's done, right? They take either the defensive posture and try to justify it by punishing the officer, or they make and implement a policy to restrict officers. At the same time, officers are seeing all this going on, and officers are getting punished. So what's the natural reaction to it? Is shit. I don't want to do anything,
Right.
because if I do something, I'm going to get in trouble.
Edit that. That's not.
What'd you say?
The gun shy. Don't edit that.
No, gun shy?
Yeah.
No, that's
I
okay.
don't want. I don't want
It
to
is
use
gun
that.
shy. You're speaking like police terms.
Yeah.
It's gun shy. You get gun shy, meaning you don't want to, for those of you who are not cops or military, gun shy means you just become hesitant. You don't want to do anything. When you see somebody looks suspicious, that's, in the alleyway next to the gas station, as you're driving by, let's say, whatever highway or whatever boulevard in whatever city, the guy's like, "Man, I don't want to go over there, because the first thing's going to happen is the guy's going to have a cell phone and he's going to like take a snippet of it, and then he's going to mouth off to me. And then when I try to detain him, they're just going to cut that front part off, and they're just going to show the part where I'm trying to arrest him, and then I'm going to get hammered because my agency has a tendency of siding with the other people and try to find a reason. And I've got a family to feed. I've got to have benefits for my kids, whatever. So they go, hey, don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. So therefore, I'm not going to do anything. You see what I'm saying? And then the store gets robbed, right? And just say, I just go take a report and hand it to the detectives and let them figure it out.
Hopefully they catch him.
Yeah, instead of preventing it. Now you've got a store owner getting a gun pulled on him. Hopefully he doesn't get shot and killed in the process. They're having to deal with trauma. Now they're losing trust in the police because the police don't give a shit. But why do they not give a shit? Because every time they're turning around, they're either being scrutinized by the media, by the public, by putting edited videos up, and the media does that shit. Hell, I had to deal with it, right? But I had to deal with it because I'm a goat herder. That was the reason.
But you are.
Well,
Edit that one out.
no, and just to let you guys know, when people are friends and they call each other names, this is how police culture works, okay? It's like a dark humor, okay? EMS has the same thing. Fire department has the same thing. Because here's what happened. You know, you do a conference somewhere and then the academia gets a hold of like recordings from the conference and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're saying that. Bro, have you ever been to a lawyer CLE training that they have to do every year to keep their license? It's a 24-hour required for you to keep your bar license. If you go to these damn lawyer trainings like in Vegas or Atlantic City, they're fucking worse. They talk so much shit. Do you remember when I teamed up with the guys from the CIA?
Oh yeah,
You remember that, like early 2010s?
Yes. Yeah.
And they invited me to go up to Northern Virginia, and I was talking to, I don't want to name them, and I was talking to him, and I said, look, if y'all want me to do a presentation, you know, I know you guys with the agency, you're like all like degree holders and academia. And I said, you know, I have a problem with like dropping F-bombs and stuff. And you know what he told me? He said, no, don't worry about it. He goes,
Oh.
What?
It flashed. It come back on.
What flashed?
The lights down here.
You bulling the China
Yes,
cabinet
absolutely.
again? Then you're going to take a dip of snuff and he's going to cut the damn electronics all like out of whack over
Too
there.
many wires around.
That's why if you guys are watching the videos as it's switching, that's why his microphone is about 10 feet from his mouth, because if we get it any closer, he'll kick it into the pool right in the background.
Once again, I'm doing this against complete protest. I'm being held hostage.
Allah Akbar.
I like to stay in the shadows.
Watch, somebody's going to take that clip of mine saying, Allah Akbar, and say, he's so racist. He's so racist. It's my people, man. Just because I sound like a redneck, hell, I came here in 1987, didn't know how to speak English.
Well, you know, you talk about that. I live my life. We're not going to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. It doesn't work. I don't give a crap what profession you do, what you do in life. 100% of the people are not ever going to be happy 100% of the time.
You're right. But the thing about it is law enforcement in general, not just the people, but administrators need to stand up and not cater to them. Because when you cater to that shit is when it empowers people and then it creates more. It like magnifies it because people see one person get a reaction that was beneficial to them. And then they turn around and go, you know, I'll give you an example. We talked about this yesterday when we did the other podcast. Does anybody ever challenge Grady Judd, the sheriff in Polk County, Florida?
I'm sure they do, but
well,
they don't go nowhere. Yeah.
They try, and he will fire right back to the point where the media people that not show up, they just know he's going to freaking like bitch slap him, like figuratively, not like walk up and actually slap him.
You know, we got to bang up administration too.
And there's
still we're very fortunate in this area, but I think I'm gonna go back to with the Chameleon Cop and training as a whole in our profession, it's getting better in some aspects, but then it lacks. Yes, and then it lacks.
When it comes to responding to like school shootings and
mass
shootings.
Here in Texas, that's a big deal now.
Right, it becomes like a mandatory because don't you have to like take like alert to become
it's
like
mandatory
a master
now,
peace
active
officer
shooter, absolutely, yeah.
Which
no, you have to have it every 2 years now.
Every 2 years, 16 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, it's like a continuing education.
Now, yes.
It's not like when you went to get your intermediate, you had to have like crime scene investigation.
No, I think it stemmed off Uvalde and everything that happened. So now they've mandated Don't quote me on this, but I think it's every 2 years. We have to
So
have
if you have
16 hours.
So even if you have a master peace officer license, you
Yes,
still
you
got
still have to have active
Well,
shooter.
thank God my shit's
Now,
retired.
you had to have there was I don't remember the date. Everybody in law enforcement that was commissioned had to have level 1 by a certain date.
When did they implement this?
Last year?
It was
Oh,
last
okay.
cycle.
Last cycle.
Last
Yeah,
cycle.
last
Oh,
training
okay.
cycle.
So my
But
commission retired
alert
20
is alert has definitely taken and they've broken down a bunch of things.
Mhm.
So you're not just taking that one class every time.
It's different
It's grown
levels.
into a big deal now.
Okay,
Yes.
which
and
is
it's
good.
great because
Which is good. Yeah,
yes.
but then again, it is a topic that only addresses one specific element.
No, not necessarily.
No,
not now.
I'm talking about with the response to a mass shooting.
Oh, yes.
When you look at law enforcement collectively as a whole, there is so many different dynamics to it.
Yes.
One of the most important thing being how you communicate with people.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, that's like I have looked and looked and looked, and every time I see something that has to do with behavioral analysis and communication skills, it focuses on one thing: de-escalation, because that's like a buzzword now, right? But you know what? Even to do de-escalation, people have to be able to understand the type of culture and the type of dynamics they're dealing with, because how you de-escalate a situation with a certain demographic is not how you de-escalate a situation when you go to a rich neighborhood where there's a family violence call and you're dealing with somebody who's a brain surgeon and their wife is a librarian. You know what I'm saying? Because their communication skills aren't the same as you going to the projects and you're having two, you know, people from a different level of education and language skills. You know, you can't talk to both the same. It's not standardized. You know what I'm saying? The same with the traffic stop, right?
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. And I think that's where it's lacking in law enforcement is, okay, we know how to respond to it, but how do we prevent some of the things that could be prevented? You see what I'm saying? What's your take on this?
Yeah. So one thing that I struggled with, so I was okay with talking to people. Like I did business and marketing and sales before I got into being a cop. So I was okay with talking to people. What I struggled with was the authority that I wielded, and then being able to back that off, right? So separating who I am as a person from the badge, right? And then
Right.
and eliminating that for other people as well.
Well, because
So
that affects people's responses to you
exactly.
too.
You
Because
know-
now you're a position of authority, and we talk about this in the Chameleon Cop. That itself
Mhm.
could be a hindrance in how communication takes place, because you're no longer
Just your
looked at as,
presence.
you're no longer looked at as somebody I'm just talking to. You're looked at as someone that could literally make a decision to ruin my life.
I have a pretty monotone voice, you know, very flat most of the time. So when I talk to people, when I first started, I got this bad response. It was, and sometimes I still get it now, because sometimes but I got a bad response of like, you know, you're here to arrest me, and that's it. And it took me several years to really figure out how to soften that impact. And you know, despite having previous communication skills, it was still very difficult. So I can't imagine being somebody who doesn't have much communicate as far as communication skills, and then trying to come in here and make that separation work. It would be even more difficult than maybe even I had a really hard time with it. I mean, I'm talking several years of not perfecting. I'm still working on it. I still suck at it most of the time, but several years of getting it to where it was workable or passable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You had to take all your experiences. Plus, you have a little bit of an upper hand than most your average cops, because
Sure.
you have a degree in psychology. You moved around,
Yeah.
experienced different cultures, right? So your analysis, there's a lot of different factors that go into you trying to come up with a better solution, which is you're factoring in all these different dynamics that could affect your response, right? Somebody who grew up, like I said, in like Jefferson, Texas, where they're used to one type of spoken language, right? And then they don't have the psychology background, and they've never experienced somebody from, let's say, like Little Rock or Dallas Fort Worth. They have this preconceived notion that everyone who exists on the planet thinks the same way they do. So when they see a variation, then to them is odd. You see what I'm saying?
For sure.
And then literally, that's why we named the course Chameleon Cop, is you got to be a chameleon. What does a chameleon do? If a chameleon comes over here on this white fence, it blends into the white fence, right? If it sits on this, what color is this? Like a shit green?
Sure.
Huh? Or we
Sure.
call it the shit green? Yeah, and it's going to turn
Banging
into
on
a
the
shit
fire
green.
pit, Sean.
Bang-
I know where you live.
Where you live. There's some of that dark humor and the shit talking that happens when cops sit
Yeah.
around talking to each other. But no,
It's going to change color to fit its environment.
fit its environment, right? And I think that's what's lacking. I'm gonna tell you, dude. I'm listening to this dude talk.
Be sharp.
Once he realizes what that tradecraft shit is.
Oh, yeah, it's over.
Oh my
Oh, yeah.
God.
Yep.
The people up on the,
What'd
down
I
the
tell you?
interstate.
I hear you. Yeah, but see, it still hasn't happened yet. So I'm
No,
not
it'll
believing.
happen.
I'm not
But I'm gonna
believing.
tell you,
I get some of those texts periodically. He stops the car. He's like, I hate my life.
Yeah.
No.
That happens more often
But
than
to be
not.
fair, to be fair,
It's tough, man.
I've worked this interstate. I've worked a lot of fucking interstates. Is that Life Flight flying around?
Probably
It
for
sounds
you.
like Life
UT
Flight.
UT
Getting
Elsa,
old. It might be landing a
It
helicopter.
sounds like Life Flight.
It might be.
Oh, it is. Is it red and white?
I don't know.
Honestly,
bro. I can't see it. It's behind
That might
me.
be one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. You could
What?
identify a helicopter based
By
on the
the-
sound.
by the
That was
blade
seriously,
sound?
seriously, that was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I was not.
That's
I
Life
was
Flight.
expecting that at all.
Dude.
Habibi, that's what I'm going up overseas. Is it Apache? Or is it a Chinook?
Or is it a
Black
Black
Hawk?
Hawk?
Which one? Because if it's an Apache, run! You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit of different. If it's a Cobra, shit.
Yeah, he's figuring it out.
Yeah. No, but seriously, I was talking about working all the different interstates. You're going to be able to pick up on how to eliminate things that normal interdiction officers would think is suspicious, because you're going to be able to bring in all these factors as to why somebody's. The hard time you're going to have is this fucking interstate is the worst fucking interstate, this stretch, to work in the entire country. Other than being in Metro
for me.
Houston or Metro Dallas, because there's just so many freaking cars.
Car, right?
But literally, you could go, because I worked this interstate here. I worked it in Louisiana. I worked it in Mississippi. I worked it in Georgia. And I've worked it out in West Texas.
I'm finna say it's completely different from here to West Texas.
Bro.
Alone. Yeah.
You go from here and you pass Shreveport, and the dynamics of the traffic totally change. It changes. Like what you see here, it never passes Shreveport. Because once it gets to Shreveport, it'll hit 49 and go south going towards New Orleans. That traffic is not on the other side, right? So this is one I would say, of all the roads I've worked, this is probably the hardest one to work. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have so many little towns every 10 miles from each other. So you have all these locals. They're jumping off over here at the 5 something. They're jumping off over there at the 590 something. You know what I'm saying? And then
Heard this before?
yeah. So I'll tell you off camera, I'll tell you where the best place to sit to kind of weed out about 80% of that shit, right? Don't be giving Edit. This is the part where he goes 5. This is the beep, beep, beep. All the interdiction guys watching it, they're like, what the f*** is that? They'll be texting me going, what mile marker was that he was talking about? And I'm like, dude, you're like 7 counties over. Just don't worry about it.
I think I figured out why. We can talk about it later. But
Yeah.
I didn't ask you, but I think I'd figured out why. I told somebody else the other day.
Dude, when I came over here, when I first came over here, and there was this old man, he was an old highway patrol trooper. He saw me at that Cadillac place, you know, when I
No.
yeah,
Let alone.
when I had to get a fender replaced on my car, right? And he was telling me, he's like, you know, best time to get out there and get some dope. I said, when's that? And he goes, go out there 7:30 Sunday morning. Sit out there at the beep where that berm is. Mm-hmm. You hide behind that berm and turn that radar on. Because them old boys is going to beep report. They done went out there Saturday night, partied all night. They done picked them out about 20 pounds of weed, and they headed back home. So they'll be hitting you about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you get them all day long doing 90 miles an hour. Right? What do? Nice. I go sit in the same place, 10 feet from the fog line. Nice. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that one day? I had shoulder surgery. I was out for like 4 months. I came out, and this other agency's doing a task force. They have like 24 hours a day for 7 days, and they got 1 pound of weed, and it was the 4th day.
That still goes like that sometimes.
Right? But listen. And I come out there and I sit and I've been there 3 hours. Have not pulled, dude. You got bees and shit around
Probably.
here. That's
They
lovely.
don't like Iranians.
They don't. Man. Racist bees.
Racist.
Racist bees. Boom.
I got them wired up.
Are they NSA bees?
Yeah.
NSA bees.
They're gonna land in my backpack. Be going through the house.
Sending it
What's
back
he
in Morse
doing?
code.
Dinger didn't say he went to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. He's undercover. He's undercover street guy. Anyway, so but anyway, I'm sitting out there, and dude, all I see is just stopping cars. I'm sitting out there for 3 hours. My shoulders are still kind of hurting. Dinger, where were you sitting at? You were like 2 miles up the road, weren't you?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I'm talking about that Malibu.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see this Beamer drive by, and I'm like,
The 7,
dudes
the
in
7
it.
kilos. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, the 5 keys in the hump.
Well, it was 7, wasn't it?
Maybe it was.
It was 7
Dude, I
kilos.
don't remember.
I
That
think it
was
was
in like
7 kilos
2008,
in
man.
the
That was in 2008.
yeah, a long time ago.
Was it 7?
Was it?
And the gold.
What's a kilo look like?
With the lady that was sitting in the
You
front
gonna
seat of my
see
car.
it.
She was a school. She worked at like Lowe's or something.
Yeah. With a rent a family in the car.
Yeah. The Renner family. They didn't know what the passenger's name was, but it was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So anyway, I see this Beamer go by, and it's a nice new Beamer, like 3 years old, and 2 dudes in it, all clean cut, got Oxford shirts on and stuff like that, and they're sitting there, and they drive by, and there's got Georgia plates on it, but the way they drive by, they're like trying to get my attention, right? Call them decoys.
We learned about that.
Oh, I've learned about it. I'm sure I've stopped a bunch of them too.
Yeah, we just stopped a couple cars a month ago.
Is he taking Smugglers Inc. 2.0?
No, I took 1.0.
You took 1.0?
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
took 1.0.
So did you take it through OSS or did you take it through the virtual academy?
You at one point offered it for free maybe 2 years ago, and I took it on y'all's website.
On my website?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
on the OSS website?
It wasn't the OSS website; it was your
Oh,
website.
so you still got an account?
You'll get it on the website.
Yeah.
It's virtual.myletraining.com.
yeah, that's
You
why I
got
took it
the
on.
app?
Yeah, I had it on my iPad while I was running
Okay.
on my treadmill. That's what
So
I listened
remind
to.
me when I leave, and I'll add 2.0 to him because it's a little bit different.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah. So anyway, car goes by, and I'm like, well, that was a little obvious. I look right behind it. There's this gold colored Malibu, dark tinted windows. But I can tell it's a female because you know how you can see the silhouette?
Yeah.
Through you can see like the silhouette. You can't say, but I can tell it's a female. She's got like frizzy hair. And when I say frizzy hair, it's kind of like back in the 80s. Remember the John Bon Jovi frizzy hair? Remember
I remember
the
that.
girls with
Blowouts, huh?
the Reebok shoes and the rolled up socks, and the Lee or Levi jeans.
Oh, you better be glad my wife ain't here right now.
But I mean,
Just
come on,
saying, that
man.
was 80s,
I'm
that
just
man,
saying
just
she
saying.
didn't belong in that car. Okay. And
Don't
that's the
mess
only
around and
person.
get boycotted by the hairspray companies.
Hey, it ain't like I'm
Yeah.
Right? That's right. Now, Skull Shaver? Nah, I can't make them mad.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she goes by, and I'm like, huh. And she starts like, the other one slowed down. She starts getting on their butt. And I'm like, yeah. And I'll look at the tag, and it's brand new, right? So I leave. I run up there, run her tag. She's like right on the butt end of that other car. And I light her up, right? Following too close. She pulls over. I walk up. There's a dude laying in the passenger seat. And I was like, oh, where'd you come from? Right?
Yeah,
Like
I've
passenger side
been
approach
there.
because it's dark ass tinted windows. I didn't realize there were 2 kids in the back, 2 like teenage. What they were like, what 12?
Yeah, they were young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were young. And that mouth starts going off. You could tell she's freaking hinked up. But anyway, it ended up being 7 kilos of coke. All of this to say, even that road is so hard that those dudes had been working for 4 days, 24 hours a day. I think they had like 6 people out each time. I sat there for 3 hours, right? And I'm not trying to say that I'm better than them. It's because you have to understand the road you're working. You can't just take applying somewhere where you see somebody on a different interstate and whatever things that they look for, it changes from highway to highway.
Geographical location.
It's geographical location. You have to know that. You have to have the know-how. You have to understand the trade craft and the clandestine activity, right? Because those apply everywhere.
Right.
And the best way I explain it, and if you're an interdiction guy or want to get into interdiction, I want you to understand something. Interdiction, the skill set is like being like you go hunter, like a sniper, right? It doesn't matter if you're putting those skills on top of a building in Ramadi as a sealed sniper, or you're going out here to the tree stand and you're deer hunting, right? Because the weaponry, the trigger control, the wind speed, you know what I'm saying? The barometric pressure, all that stuff has to apply to regardless of the terrain you're deployed in. However, your target selection changes based on the terrain. If a hunter who has the same skill set as, let's say, a SWAT sniper or a SEAL sniper or a Ranger sniper, right? A Green Beret sniper. If a hunter comes out here to East Texas and wants to go deer hunting, the only thing that changes is his terrain and the type of game he's hunting, right? So what kind of deer are you going to hit here? Whitetail, right? Now, if you take that same dude and take him up to Montana, now his target has changed.
Yeah.
What do they got up there as far as deer? So they got elk, right?
Blackbuck, antelope,
buffalo.
Yeah, I'm saying buffalo, whatever, right? The terrain changes, but the same skill set still applies. So if someone is hyper focused on a highway where, let's say, and do like a parallel, is they're looking at white-tailed deer all the time. When you take them from that particular hunting camp and take them somewhere to like Montana or Wyoming, and they're still looking for whitetail, they're not going to find it because that type of game doesn't, and they may, I don't know. I ain't never going deer hunting out there. Shit, I'm scared to go deer hunting. I'm not going out in the woods with a bunch of rednecks.
Why? Banjos?
No, not banjos.
You do hear them.
Huh?
I've been out at night. You do hear them.
Banjos?
Oh,
Depending on where you go.
See, when I worked here, I was on the interstate. The only time
Oh,
I
yeah.
took an exit was just to get gas. You know what I'm saying? And I
hotel.
always went to the interstate on either that U.S. highway or that U.S. highway. Like I never took an FM road. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to accidentally run across anybody.
Oh yeah.
And the safest gas stations for me, I would go in and I'd look at the dude. And if he was one of my cousins, it was a safe space. You know what I'm saying? Because Habibi, I will get free drinks.
He used to go to the villages east.
Do what?
He used to go to the villages east.
Oh, yes.
What?
There's a place called the Villages East, and it's very much you're gonna hear banjo playing in that.
Yeah. No. Bro, I used to go around the other side of the loop where the school is, and I'd be like, the hell is this? And I lived here. I lived over there off of South Broadway. Yeah. And like I knew Walmart. I knew the fast food joints. I knew the gym.
This fool goes to Dallas to go grocery shopping.
Yeah. I would go to grocery shopping in Dallas. You know, what Middle Eastern place, man? Richardson. It's Sarah Bakery. I just know not to take him. Bro,
Oh, yeah.
let me tell you a story while we're on that. Get into the Middle Eastern. I was in Mississippi with HSI, Homeland Security. So my truck says Homeland Security on it. It's black Tahoe, blacked out lettering. You know what I'm saying? It's got a Homeland Security badge on it. It says Homeland Security right where you see the Border Patrol cars. It's got Border Patrol underneath that back window.
Yeah.
Mine said Homeland Security, but it's all like decked out, got like freaking LPRs, 1,500 antennas, you know, all kinds of shit. You could look at it. It looks like a Secret Service presidential porticade.
Yeah.
Right? Shiny. I go over there. I think I had to do something with the feds. And so I was there for a couple of days. So on the way back, I took a cooler. I was like, shit, I'm going to stop at Sarah's Bakery and load up. Bro, I pulled up in the parking lot of Sarah's Bakery. My truck says Homeland Security, and I got my gear on.
Were you wearing all
and all
green?
that shit. And I walk in, and the whole place goes, like, starts looking at me. I got lucky because one of the owners was in there, and the butcher knew me. So I go to the butcher to get some meat. Because the best meat you can get is either kosher or halal because they drain all the blood out of it, right? So you don't get the toxins and it cooks better, more tender. So I go in there and I'm standing over there. I got all my shit, says, federal, Homeland Security. And everybody's staring at me. And the guy who's the butcher, he's a Mexican guy. He says, hey, John, how you doing, my friend? So there's this girl in a full hijab. And she looks over at me and she goes, are you from the Middle East? I said, yeah. She goes, Oof, you scared everybody in the store. Because you know what everybody's thinking. And we're talking, this was in like 2014, right?
So way before a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was like 2014. And you could see like the whole place just went, because it's like I walked in and I went straight to the butcher area and like every cart stopped moving. You know, you got people down the aisles and they were all like froze. Like it looked like an episode of Chips. You ever see Chips?
I saw the new movie. I've never
Yeah,
seen.
no. If you
Lord.
watch the old episodes, you remember when they were
Yeah.
driving down the interstate? It's like every car was doing 30 miles an hour, so they could be going around. It's like the whole scene would stop because they were moving.
Yeah.
Like I walk in, it almost like everybody went on pause while I'm working by myself, right? So as soon as she said that, and I was like, yeah, she goes, where are you from? I said, I'm from the Middle East. And she goes, oh, what you doing here? I said, I come to get some halal meat. She goes, oh, okay. Thank you for your service. I'm glad to see somebody from our area become police. And it's not police, it's bullies, because there's no P in the Arabic language, right? So I was like, yeah, everything's good. And then I turn around and I see everybody go, and then they start shopping again. And I was like, good Lord. But anyway, I don't even know why the I squirreled off into
I
that.
don't either.
It's
It is.
funny that you say that though, but that is a
It's true, though.
That is a thing that I'm having to deal with. You know, the cross. I can go down to our local areas and talk to those people. I know how to talk to those people, but you get people that are traveling across the country and they talk a little different. They give you answers to things a little different.
Mhm.
There's different people. There's different, the uniforms we wear are a little bit different. So their reaction to us might be a little different. So
Wait. Y'all wear green?
Well, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Well,
Yeah,
we do, but we had to shift it. We changed some of it up to tan, so we
Yeah.
don't with the current shift and everything.
Yeah.
Tan?
It was
It was go charcoal.
Well, no, we did. We still wear the OD green. It's comfortable for what we do, and then we shifted to I guess dark earth or coyote.
Yeah, it's like an FTE.
because we were eliciting a response from folks that we
Yeah, 'cause they thought you were Border
Yeah,
Patrol.
they thought we were.
They think you're
yeah,
Border Patrol.
yes.
But defeating that early obstacle with people, I mean, you could sit there for an hour, talking to somebody and think like, oh man, I got somebody good. And they're just worried that you're going to take them someplace different.
Yeah.
you
Oh
know?
yeah, and
And so-
it's funny you say that because my truck said Homeland Security, and at nighttime it was reflective.
Yeah.
So the headlights would hit it, and they wouldn't be able to tell what kind of car it is. All they see is a HSI badge and Homeland Security. So they were like, and I go stop them, and it'd be like 13 people in the car, and I'm like, hey man, how you doing? It's like, doing fine, sir.
But that goes back to everything we've been talking about with the Chameleon Cop. You have to adjust
Right.
to each individual because I mean there's
Well-
just certain things we're going to elicit a response. that
Exactly.
We don't
exactly.
need to
You
elicit.
green uniform
Yeah.
to somebody who doesn't have papers, you're la migra.
Yeah.
Me, Homeland Security, to somebody who doesn't have papers,
Yeah.
I'm la migra. So then I would be like, hey man, you okay?
Yeah.
See, I said, you have your license? And they go, no, speak English. And I'm going, ¿Tiene papeles, por favor? Well, I have to learn how to speak Spanish too, right?
Oh yeah, we were talking about that before. Is I can have the conversation over the computer with them and translate everything, but it's not as personal, and I don't get the same. They don't calm down as much as when I try to speak. Now
Well,
my
that's 'cause you're a
Spanish
white
is
guy.
bad. Yeah, well,
You're a
yeah,
white
but
guy.
I'm a but trying to speak Spanish to them seems to. I'm meeting them at their level, right? I'm
Right.
meeting them where they're at, and not trying to make them meet me where I'm at.
Right.
And that has drastically changed the way that I may communicate with people who are just normal people. They're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. But what I was getting before was a lot of fear from uniforms and my not being able to. But now that I have a little bit of Spanish and I'm trying to implement it more, it gets me through these interactions a little bit better. Where I'm not solely focused on this, where I can go get other people that need to be
Right.
caught.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're not misanalyzing their fear-based response
exactly.
and relating it to deception. It's more literally they're afraid of consequence of getting deported.
Right. Exactly.
And that's
and
the
that's a
thing.
big fear right now.
Yeah, it
with
is.
everything.
Especially now, every time the political climate changes, it changes how people respond.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I remember like I would have to do the same thing because the guy, as soon as I walk up to the car and be like, you have a license? No, speak English. And I'm like, ¿Tiene papeles, por favor? ¿Tiene licencia? No, Mexico. I'm like, oh, okay, let me see it. I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay. I said, amigo, cálmate way. Like, calm down. And he's like, and I was like, oh, amigo, no la migra. Looking for narcotraficante. And then they go, oh, okay.
No got
And
it.
then, no Gotti. And then after that, everything is cool. I'm like, ¿cuántas personas? How many people you got? It's like, oh, like 12? And all of a sudden the guy starts speaking English,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like 12, and I'm like, ¿Dónde va? They say, oh, this one, Atlanta. This one, Riles, North Carolina, right? This one, Maryland. This one, New York. And I'm like, oh, you're a Uber de Mexicano, right? Like Mexican Uber. Sí, señor. I'm like, okay, amigo, adios.
Yeah.
Cuidado para la migra. You know, like, be careful for the la migra. And then you see them, all of them call, gracias, amigo, gracias, amigo. You know what I'm saying? Because at the time, they weren't prosecuting. You know, depending on who's in office, they're not going to prosecute coyotes and stuff like that. So what are you going to do about it?
Nothing.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, now that Texas has passed that human smuggling law, prior to that, you know, when I'm working in other states, they may not have a local human smuggling law. So you have to turn it over to the feds. And if the feds are told by the security, you know, the Secretary of Homeland Security that you're not going to process these people that can go to wherever they're going, but then you're, you know, your hands behind your back. You can't do nothing about it, you know. But that fear is still there.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Especially when your shit says Homeland Security, because they know they're not dealing with the regular police, you know. But the whole Chameleon, dude, and if the cops are watching this, in today's age, especially with how the culture is shifting, people are moving around, the political atmosphere is shifting, it requires officers to be more vigilant and more willing to be open-minded and factor in all of this, because at the end of the day, when he's on the road, when you're on the road, when somebody else is on the road, you're having to rely on, okay, I've been trained to look for fear-based response because that's how I build my reasonable suspicion, right? But if you're not trained on how to eliminate what else causes fear, then you're going to misanalyze people's behavior. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that's the whole purpose of well, come up with that class, because it's not just for the road. It's, you know, you're, like I said earlier, you're going to a family violence call in a low-income housing versus you go to a family violence call in the rich neighborhood where you're dealing with doctors. Each one has to be handled different. And when I say handled, for those people, it'll be like, oh, see, they're not enforcing the law the same. No. I'm talking about how you communicate with one demographic and one educational background is going to differ from how you communicate with someone in like that lives in a $910,000 house and they have 2 PhDs or they're historians or they're college professors. And you know what I'm saying? It's not the same.
Well,
you don't just walk up. And I teach that when I was teaching the interdiction class. I would tell them, hey, you stop somebody's got a coat lab and it says Dr. So-and-so on it. You don't walk up and say, what's up, boy? What you doing, homie? How's everything going? You say that shit to a doctor. What do you think the doctor's going to do? Who the hell is this retard? You know what I'm saying? You know, but you could do that depending on if you stop a little 18-year-old gangbanger and he's got tattoos all the way. You don't walk up to him and say, good evening, sir. How you doing, Mr. PhD man? That's not how you talk to him, because at that point.
But it falls back on cultural differences, period. At the end of the day, it's a cultural deal.
Exactly.
And everybody interprets shit different. It's perception versus reality on that deal. So, I mean.
And then if you stop Middle Eastern folks.
That's a completely different animal when you deal with it.
Let me tell you how Middle Eastern folks think. Middle East. Oh, look, there's a little gecko. Hello, little dude. You want to get in the camera? You want to get in the camera? Look, we're talking about a chameleon. Little gecko shows up.
How's that?
Hey, you want to go to class? Virtual.myletraining.com. I'll give you a free course. Yalla.
Well, you know, Sean, we talking about all that, and I literally earlier I meant to mention it because you were talking about, you know, the officer responded to somebody in the alley and they start videoing whatever.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you watch a lot of these videos, TikTok.
Oh, tickety.
Yeah, TikTok. And once again, every agency's different. But I personally, I strive when they start videoing
to make a good movie.
Oh yeah,
you play along with it.
I mean, you want my autograph now or later, bro, because this was going viral, and I can't ever get them to post it.
You know what you need to do? Create you a YouTube channel. You don't post anything. Give them your handle. Say, make sure you tag me.
I ain't gonna do that. But
I would.
It's literally, and I mean, it's happened a few times where they want to start video and start screaming safety and all that stuff.
I'm scared.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
afraid of my life.
And I'm like, bro, see that? That's a camera. That's a camera. Your camera. I think we're gonna be safe. What do you think? But I strive at the end, literally, for them. I'm gonna want you to post it, but I ain't got anybody to do it yet because they always shut the damn camera off. Because when you flip the narrative on them,
Right.
then they shut it off, and it's like I'm like, no, why you shut it off? Mine's still going. Why you turn yours off?
Quit touching the mic. See, we even put it 10 feet away from you. You still touching it.
He's gonna blow out his
Yeah,
ear.
that hurt.
He's got the earphones
No,
on
he's
over
like,
here.
no.
He's like, ouch, my eardrum.
Knew it was coming, huh?
For those of you who didn't hear what he said, to get my my producer over here, so he had to turn it down so he didn't blow out his eardrums. Dinger over there trying to, hey, it's not a car. Quit trying to search it.
It all boils down to how we talk to people and how they're some of these people are out here doing this stuff are literally trying to bully you.
Yeah.
When it comes to it.
They're trying to trigger.
Yes,
Because it gets some views.
Yeah, they're trying to elicit their response that they're
Right.
looking for.
Do you know? Have you looked into how much money they can make?
What?
On YouTube, once you get a certain number of viewers,
Oh.
the monetization is anywhere from $25 to $50 per 1,000 views.
How much?
$25 to $50 per 1,000 views. That's not counting if you don't get sponsored. So they can put a video out, get 100,000 views on it in 2 days. They're making what? Let's say on the low end, $25 per 1,000, right? What's a 100 times 25? 2,500.
Okay.
Right? In 2 days, they make 2,500, and then the commercials or the sponsorships add on it. One video, they'll make 10 grand.
Come up with only cops.
Yeah, I hear you.
Only cops?
No, but those auditor channels are really popular. I try to disassociate from being a cop whenever I go home, but it seems to always follow you. And so, but you're right. I mean, they'll have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, and disarming them with not what they want is probably the best communication with them, is being able to avoid the pitfalls and traps of being involved with that versus
Getting
just,
sucked in.
you're just telling them like, oh, it's fine. You can record if you want, but like,
and that's the
you know-
thing. Let me tell you where that come from. Back in the day when people started recording, cops were all freaked out. And I'm like, why, dude? You got a body cam. You got a camera in the car. And they're like, oh, they shouldn't be recording. It's against the law. And that's why like the Supreme Court had to come out and say, no, they can film as long as they're not interfering, right? Did you see that video of that dude live streaming where he went up to Tully up in Dallas at a
I
gas
saw that.
station?
Yeah,
Did you see that?
him, but
You know the only reason that ended up staying on YouTube because the dude was live streaming. He couldn't just cut it off because it would have looked stupid. Yeah, it's like an hour long. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen
Yeah.
it.
Do you still got the link to it?
maybe.
All you got to do is just go.
Yeah,
I think
we'll find it. It's
yeah,
Tully.
it's like
him,
an Tully's like
genius,
what he made a mistake of. He picked out an interdiction dude.
yeah.
Okay, especially Tully.
Yeah, right.
Right? Because I'm gonna tell you, if you're watching, you're an interdiction dude. There may be 1,000 interdiction dudes in the country, but there are only about 10 that are like SEAL Team 6 style. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about tactics. I'm just talking about versatility.
It's not me.
You know what I'm saying? Well, Tully, it
Yeah.
all has to do with
Mhm.
background and people being familiar with stuff. And Tully just like flips the whole thing.
They did.
You know what I'm talking about? And to the point where I was watching it, and you can actually go see when they were live streaming it. People are commenting, even the anti-cops and the ACAP people, they're like, I like this officer. He's a cool dude. Keep going, because he was talking to the thing. And people are like, every cop needs to be like him. You know what I'm saying? And he got like millions of views on that thing. You know what I'm saying? But that was a good one. But the problem is, attention span is so short these days that was only viral for like a week. And then all the negative shit started taking over.
Pin it
Again.
back up.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think one thing that was another hard thing for me was there's always risk in this job, right? So we know that there is some risk in stopping cars and making contacts, going to calls, whatever. Was I don't have to be a hard ass to be safe, right? I can be soft and cuddly and nice, but still maintain my safety. And that might be part of what is a struggle with guys is that there is a fear element to this job. I mean, it's normal to get scared, but the you can't compromise your safety, but you can't compromise the communication either. On either side of those, at least that's what I see sometimes with guys is they want to maintain their safety and they forget how to talk altogether.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think that roboticness that's taught in the academy sometimes ends up being like a big downfall
Yeah,
because they try to teach standardization and that robotic element. You know, like we were talking about earlier, is treat everybody exactly the same. So it removes that empathy a factor,
Yep.
right? And then the fear of, well, you can't treat one person and talk to one person different than another because now we're going to get sued for being, oh, we treated somebody who's a minority, talked to him different than we did this other doctor. Now we're being racist. And then that whole vicarious liability kicks in. And it goes back to, well, if we don't treat everybody differently, then we can't be sued because we're treating everybody the same. But then that's hindering how people are learning how to communicate because they become robots.
Yeah, and it creates issues with people that don't understand that portion of it. It's
Right. So
100%.
the public doesn't
They're
understand.
like, oh, he's just being an asshole. He's going to write me a ticket.
They don't realize that asshole element is not, it's forced to prevent vicarious liability and being labeled as
to prevent you thinking the way that you think.
Right. So it's like it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of just coming out and say, folks, the reason why we do this is because we don't want people to think they're being treated different. So don't take offense to it. They're just doing their job based on how we expect them to perform it. Don't expect them to be all gushy, shaking hands and kissing babies, because if we shake hands and kiss your babies and the next person is upset with us, they're expecting us to treat them with fragile gloves and stuff like that when we're dealing with somebody who's involved in a freaking assault and there's a threat to the officers. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, everything is going to be handled different. So you're still going to have your people who are just going to be anti-police because it doesn't matter what the police does. They're still going to find something wrong with it. You could be out there changing somebody's tire. Listen to this. You could be out there changing somebody's tire, some old lady, and she's sweating and you give her water. 90% of the people are like, oh, this is how officers are, back to blue, back to blue. And then one guy comes back and says, yeah, but look how he's got his drop leg holster, look like a tactical guy, like he's going to shoot somebody. I'm surprised he didn't shoot her in the head.
You know
and
what?
I'm like,
they can come on, put all this stuff. I went yesterday was my wife's birthday, and I had to go get her some flowers. And I walked in.
Hold on. For those of you who don't understand redneck, he said yesterday was his wife's birthday and he had to go buy her some flowers because you say yesterday was my wife's birthday.
Oh, yeah,
buy her
my
some
bad.
flowers. Some guy in
Did you
California.
understand?
I heard it
Thank
just
you,
fine. So
Taylor.
it's
Thank
probably
you
just
so
spending
much.
all the time
Some
in
guy in
Texas.
California is like, what did he say? What the
But
Is he
anyway,
speaking
it was
English?
just you talking about that. It's the way we dress. For us, in running dogs, it's more comfortable. People look at those vests. Well, they're tactical. No, they're load bearing vests, so we can pull some of the stuff off our belts to carry it on our vest to shift that weight. So because most cops I know have been doing this for any length of time have back problems.
Because they're harping on that militarized look.
Yep.
But one thing they don't realize, and if you are a civilian and you see those, especially the guys who have canines or they're involved in interdiction, they search 18-wheelers, you have to be versatile because when you have that vest underneath your uniform, you're limited as to movement. So when you're crawling the back of an 18-wheeler and you're suspecting that there may be smuggling human beings in like the fourth pallet, you have to get up on the top and move around. So having that, weapon over here that's going to jab you and that vest that's like, you're like, sucked up in there, you can't even breathe.
How'd that go?
Yeah. And then you go, shut your mouth. And then you go up on top of the 18-wheeler. Bro, that's how I blew out my shoulders, remember?
Yeah.
Because I had that interior vest.
We got him now, so we're like, hey, crawl that
Yeah, I am
load.
the designated load
You're the
crawler.
little chihuahua?
Yeah, he's
that's
the
Are you the
chihuahua
chihuahua?
now.
Yeah.
So, hey,
so
man, go check that
That's
load.
what happened to me. I crawl up the 18-wheeler. I have to wear that under vest, under my shirt. And wasn't I wearing a Class A at the time?
Yeah, we did for a little while.
Yeah. Until I'll tell you how I fixed that problem. So yeah, you remember old
Don't.
I'm gonna beep it out. I'm gonna beep it out. There was a high-ranking supervisor here. His name was beep beep. He was so old school that you had to wear Class A's and you had to have the crease on your britches. You know what I'm saying? And you
Nice.
had to wear the Corino, shiny ass shit. And I'm trying to explain to this buffoon that I'm crawling the asphalt underneath a BMW SUV. So as I'm on the
Fits
ground,
under those.
huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
I
he
fit under
fit.
those. That's right. That's right.
I don't fit under
Yeah.
those.
He has to bend down and go, ugh. I just kind of duck down and just walk underneath. So, and you're grabbing the frame and you're pulling yourself.
Mhm.
So your back of your polyester shirt is on the asphalt.
Yeah.
129 degrees, and it's a tan shirt.
Oh,
And you got this Chlorino vest with the 2 handcuffs on the back. So as you're pulling yourself, you're going, it's like scratching on the ground. So there's no longer Chlorino. It becomes like beat up leather, almost like a basket weave. And instead of black, it turns into that raggedy ass blue
Yeah.
looking,
Blue gray.
blue gray, you know what I'm saying? Strings hanging off of it and shit. And then you're like, we just bought you 2 damn uniforms and you ruined them. And I was like, I told you it ain't gonna work. No, this is how we've always done it, by God. This is how you gotta have that command
Whoops.
presence and shit. Well, I knew that going to the police supply store over there next town, that those shirts were $65 a piece. And then breeches were $99 a piece because I had to go get fitted because they don't make little people uniforms because I wear at the time I was wearing like a 34-27, right? So they had to
Jeez.
extra hem that shit.
yeah.
So I knew how much it was because they were charging like $15 per leg,
Yeah.
right? And I knew every time they bought me 3 shirts and 3 pairs of pants, they were dumping like $600, right? So I was like, I don't know how this shit works. Because the one thing with administration, the one thing that grabs attention is what?
Money.
Budget.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, I'll fix this shit. After the 3rd set, in 2 months of working here, I went out there on the interstate. I saw a log hauler drive by. It was empty. I said, I got you. Turn the lights on. The guy pulls over. I walked up and I said, hey, man, I think one of your brake lines is loose. And he goes, all right. I said, you don't have to get out. Let me check it. I went and got underneath that 5th wheel with my back up like this. And
There's another gecko.
you looking at the gecko?
The
again?
chameleon cop. There's
The
another one running
the
up.
chameleon
Yeah,
cop.
the chameleon cop. He's like, hey, I'm gonna check this out.
Isn't this?
Hey, can we pause? Yeah, we can. Let's pause.
We had to take a little break because I guess Dinger's bladder was getting full.
Yeah,
So
right.
I don't remember exactly where part of the story I was in, but
About the uniform.
yeah. So I go up underneath the 5th wheel, right? And I have a tan shirt on.
Yeah.
And I
he's
get up
divulging
underneath it.
secrets.
Do what?
You see what he's doing?
You see what?
You're divulging secrets.
No, I'm just telling you how an interdiction officer is such a chameleon.
So now, any future guys that are facing that with their administration are going to pull that stunt. And they're going to know you listen to that on
Bro,
the
I
podcast.
marketed and I trademarked that activity. If anybody copies it, enter at your own risk. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So
Some
knowing,
things just need to be left alone.
bro, this
Sean.
is what the CIA does. They find a weakness and then they have an asset and they utilize that asset to exploit that weakness to get what they want. Right? It's asset management. Right? That's what narcs do with confidential sources. That's what the feds do with anybody who's a snitch. Right? Either way, anyway, going knowing what the weakness is. So I go and I go out to the road because I know I had to go to the office. Right? I had a meeting with
Somebody up there.
somebody up there, right? Because oh, by the way, I never worked for anybody. My direct boss was the man,
Boss.
the boss, right? And it was funny because not only my direct boss was the boss, my wife at the time was the boss's secretary.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? That was
Yeah.
part of the deal with me coming here.
Yeah.
She had to have a job, and he said, well, you can be my secretary. I said, fair enough, right? Because then I don't have to pay dependent insurance. I'm Middle Eastern, bro. That's the way it works. At the end of the day, it's about zeros and ones. You know what I'm saying? All the Middle Eastern people are like, I like him. He's a good guy. He know exactly what we are thinking, right? So anyway, so
Remind me, I'm about to come back to this after this story.
I'm going to talk about the hummus story.
I don't care about this story.
You don't, I don't care. I'm going to tell you about the hummus story. But anyway, so I get up there and I got this fresh coat of like axle grease on my back, on my tan
Yeah.
shirt. And these are brand new shirts. I just picked them up the day before out of, are they still ordering uniforms from the same place? Starts with an N?
I don't know where they're. No.
You remember that guy?
No. I think it's closed down. Then is it still open over there?
No, this is still open.
Is it still?
Is it still open? Yeah.
I worked for.
I don't know if that's where
You
we.
were,
Mhm.
I used to go over there and have to get dressed. That's why I
Yeah.
knew how much the prices were.
Yeah, probably shouldn't keep that part in.
Yeah, we'll beep it out. We'll beep
But
it.
yeah,
We'll beep
but,
it out. Yeah,
but yeah,
we'll beep
no,
out. We'll beep out the city name and the name of the place. Yeah, that's a lot of editing we got to do, man.
You had some editing on this.
Yeah,
one.
yeah. The one from last night's even worse, man. We're talking and like Middle Eastern people are it's like, "Hello, how are you?" And it's like, "Come on, man, we're in the middle of a podcast."
You know, you just brought that story up. I'm gonna intervene because we ended up changing uniform.
But bro, that was the whole purpose. So guess what I did? You know, remember my wife is the secretary, right? And I'm going on the 6th floor in the old building. So I knew I had a meeting at 2:00. So I come out here at 12:30 and I grease myself up real good, right? Before I get in my car, because it was a brand new Tahoe. I was like, well, I ain't getting this shit into my damn patrol car. So I get my rain slicker and I put it on my seat. I go, as soon as I cut the dude loose, I was like, hey, man, I fixed it. Go on. You good? I didn't fix shit. There was nothing wrong with it. I just wanted some grease, right? So I get back in the car. I go get my rain slicker, put it on my seat, and I drive my ass all the way downtown. Does he know where the old building was?
Yes.
Where you had to park on the bottom and then you
Yes.
had to get in that driveway and go into the parking garage? Well, I always parked in the front and the bottom. You know, you had to be like a rank of what, captain and above to park over there, right? If there was a spot, I would just back my car in because I'd leave my dog in there and the car was running. And I think at the beginning, they kind of got mad. They're like, well, you're in my parking spot. And then the big man will be like, he parks that car wherever he wants to park it because it's $300,000 worth of equipment and he's going to have to get to it because I want him on the interstate.
Yeah.
So then they would be like, you know, get all butt hurt. And, hey, you leave the parking lot open? Shit. I got a dog. That thing's worth $25,000. Your car? You can walk. There's still an elevator on the 2nd floor. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. That other boss was, I don't know the new one. Seems like a pretty nice guy, but the last one, he was old school.
Yeah.
Like old school, right? So anyway, I go up and I know this other dude's office is on this side, right? And I know that every time there's commotion, he kind of gets up and sticks his head out to see who's up in the front counter on the 6th floor. And on the other side, directly across from his is where the coffee machine is, right? So I would come in and I'd be like, my wife is sitting there and there was that other girl secretary for the second man in charge. And I'd be like, I come in and go, hey guys, what's going on? Like real loud because I wanted him to hear me.
Yeah.
You know, and the big man is sitting in his office with the door cracked, and he's like, dang it, what you doing here? You need to be out on the interstate. And I said, I got a meeting. And he goes, all right, well, hurry up, get back on the interstate. so I go over there because now there's commotion.
Yeah.
He comes out, and I hear him, his seat like move,
Yeah.
and he's fixing to get out. And I turn like I'm going to the coffee machine. So when he comes out, he's looking at my back.
Yeah.
And I've got this big ass grease spot on my back of this tan uniform. And he goes, what the hell happened to your shirt? And I'm like, what do you mean? It looks good to me. What's wrong? Is it too long or something? I mean, it's tucked in. I got like, you remember the old shirt keepers? You like hook it up to the top of your shirt,
Yeah.
and then it would go down and it would
Hook
hook
to
up to your socks.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yeah,
keep
there's
it
still a
tucked.
thing.
Oh, I wore those. Yeah.
I had to because I wore an extra large shirt. Bro, I'm only 5'4". It looked like I was
He
wearing a
should be in
fucking gown.
That's how we wear now.
Hey, no, because I used to work out,
Yeah.
right? So the bottom of the shirt is hanging below my knee. You know what I'm saying? So when I would get in and out of the car, it would all come out, and I would get out, and it would like cover up my gun and all that. It looked all sloppy, so I had to keep them down. So anyway, I said, well, it looks good. It doesn't look like I got any creases anywhere. He goes, what's that shit on your back? And I said, well, I ain't got no eyes behind me. I don't know what's going on. And then I would turn, and about that time, the big man would come out and be like, holy shit, what happened to the back of your shirt? And I was like, what is it? And my wife knew because I'd call her and told her. And she goes, did you just search an 18-wheeler? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, you have that grease stuff all over your back. And I'm like, oh, man. And I'd go, Sheriff, I'm sorry, man. I know these things are like $60-something a piece. I mean, there's a way to handle this. If I can just get some polos and go with like a like a blue color, or like a navy blue or
Yeah.
something, and then go with some pants, because I can just wash those and use some like degreaser, and I don't have to worry about taking it to the cleaners. We don't have to replace it, and they're more versatile. How much are them? I said, I think the shirts are like $25 and the breeches are like 45. They're like half the price. And he goes, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and order them about 6. How many you need? And I said, I take probably about 6 pairs and 6 of each, because it'll be about the same price, but I can wash them. Plus, I don't have to wash them every 2 days. I can actually get 2 weeks out of them. Mike, go ahead and order it for him. And you can see Mike go. Because this whole time for 3 months, he's ordered me like 3 pairs. And I keep telling him, I don't think these are the ones to go with. And that's what everybody wears. You're driving the damn patrol car, marked like everybody else. You got to drive the same damn uniform. And I was like, why? He said, that's how we've always done it. Boy, I was like, all right, well. We ended up with blue uniforms, didn't we? Mm-hmm. At that time, they didn't have outer carriers, or we would have had outer carriers too. Remember? Because I still had to wear, that's how I ended up blowing my shoulder. Because remember when I was crawling that 18-wheeler and I fell between the 2 pallets?
Yes.
Dude, I was stuck in the 2 pallets. I was in the back of an 18-wheeler. I handcuffed, the door closed.
Yeah.
Right? Were you out there?
Yes.
Huh? Were you standing outside? He was standing. He came up afterwards because I called him up and I said, hey, come over here. I got to tie this truck. Right? So I opened the door and I take my handcuffs and I close it, like latching it.
Yeah.
And I would handcuff the door to the little opening on the side of the trailer.
Yeah.
So if I was in there by myself, the guy couldn't lock me in and take off. Right. So I'm up on top of these pallets, and they're shrink wrapped all the way to the top, and they kind of come over, right? And the way they're staggered, I would go from one on the left side where there's an opening, and I would look in, and then I would crawl to the next one, and I would twist. Right? Mm-hmm. So I could see all 3 sides and look down the side to see if they had like manipulated the pallets. And this was because I got a couple of, we got 3 loads out here where they was stuck in the pallets. Remember the 1,100 pounds?
1,100 pounds.
242 pounds. That was the first load. I think it was like the 3rd day I was working.
That was 1,100. That was at Mike Tyson.
Oh yeah. The one with the trucking company. Yeah, where said he was carrying military boots. Yeah. We're gonna talk about that. But anyway, that was funny. But anyway, so I go up and I got all this gear because I couldn't get drop leg holster. I was able to get them to go with the basket weave instead of the shiny shit, but still had to wear a regular holster. So my magazine pouch, I think it was in the front over here, got caught up in that plastic. So as I was twisting, it twisted me into the plastic.
Oh, shit.
So when I went to move...
Little people problems.
You're talking shit now, ain't you? All right, hummus. So I get caught up in this thing, and I'm trying to move over, right? And I can't because I'm stuck where my feet are going around, the momentum of my feet, and I fall in between the pallets.
Short circle.
The short circle. I fall in between the pallets, but I go with such a force that I put my arms up to hold myself up, and my elbows hit me in the ear. Pow! I blew out both shoulders. Now I'm inside the hole of these 8-foot pallets. He can't hear me.
Yeah.
I'm over there like trying to freaking work my way out. Hey, I'm like, help! He can't hear me because I'm like 3/4 away down the trailer.
Oh no.
He's standing on the concrete interstate, 18-wheelers going by. All he hears is meow, meow. He can't hear shit. So I finally work my way out, and I'm like rolling on top of these pallets, coming back out. And then I'm like holding on to shit, trying to get out. And he goes, what the hell happened? I said, I blew out my shoulder. Dude, I think that trailer was loaded. Yeah. We ended up cutting it. Because I get in the car and I'm like, I gotta go to the hospital. And I'm holding on to this because I can't raise my arms.
Yeah.
I'm literally shuffle steering
it's a good thing they taught you shuffle
the way from I'm from this mile marker we're at down over there by the big truck stop. I'm trying not to say the names.
Yeah.
All the way down to the hospital.
Yeah.
I'm getting out of the car and I can only move my hands like this, like it looked like a little
T-Rex.
Yeah, T-Rex. I go in there. Dude, I had like 2 slap tears, 2 dislocations, right?
Yeah.
And somehow I popped them back in place when I was coming back out.
Oof.
Dude, it destroyed my freaking shoulder.
Yeah.
So I got like 3 screws in each one.
So what you need to take out, be careful crawling those loads
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, be careful.
Dude, he ain't
I
gonna
got
have a
it.
problem high centering. He's tall enough
Yeah,
where
he
he can
gonna
just
land on
put
the
one
straight.
leg on one side, one leg
Uh-huh.
on the other side,
Yeah,
and be like yeah, he's
He
gonna
hits
be,
the bottom, he's gonna be like, hold on.
yeah. He
Kinda
hits
how
the
it was. It's kind of just
Hey,
like live
he
myself.
hits the bottom. He can still see over the pallets.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
for newer guys, and I mean, I'm coming into interdiction, I guess. But how did you guys eliminate those barriers when you found them? I mean, was it just living life? You guys are just doing it. I mean, was there a way that you guys kind of helped yourselves get past those obstacles?
I think you and I've had this discussion. So I'm a proponent of training.
Yep.
Especially nowadays, you got tons of different training companies out there. And I think every one of them has something you can take from it doing this profession. You go to every bit. It's kind of like FTO. I used to tell my trainees, you're going to get X amount of FTOs, pull a little bit from each one of them because you're never going to replicate any one of them.
Yeah.
You're never going to replicate Sean Pardazy. It's not going to happen. I mean, he's his own beast. You pull a little bit from it, and I remember, of course, I come up under him, and he would say, it's kind of like I do with you now.
Yeah.
Because I'd be out, boy, stopping cars. I'd see something while I saw a class. I'd be like, bam, oh, this is loaded. And man, I was searching a shitload of cars. I was coming up with nothing.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm sitting in the same spot.
Yeah.
No, it's 2.0. I'm telling you, it's the same
it
shit's
is,
happening
it is.
again.
Now he's sitting in that spot.
Yeah,
You're
it's
running
exactly
around.
what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I still think you have to go through that. I think it's like a phase of training
It is.
because it's like you and I've talked. You have to get out. You've got to talk to people. You have to learn. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in law enforcement because I didn't ask to come to our unit. I was told back in that day. But once you get up there, you're dealing. It's a different set versus street level versus highway. Period. You learn how to talk to people, and you realize real quick that the way I talk to these guys down here in the county or city is completely different when we hit the highway. So that was my first hurdle. And then once I put it all together and we sat down and started talking with Chameleon Cop, it's really not, because if I pay attention to who I'm dealing with and I open up my eyes and ears and I listen to the questions that I ask and listen to the response, and I'm not going to get into detecting deception and all that. It's no different. It's a little bit more in depth on the highway versus street level.
Sure.
But when it comes down, it all boils down to the interview and talking to people. And,
Right. It's about to be in the chameleon. And let me
Yep.
tell you, you were talking about like when I was on the road and I was trying to like pass on because I went through that. I went through that stage.
You just
right?
hit the mic?
I just hit the mic.
No, okay, just checking. Boy in China cabinet.
Now
Thank
he
you.
gonna
Thank
try
you,
to
Mr.
bust balls
Producer.
like one time. You know what I'm saying? For those of you who are watching who ain't cops, welcome to the cops world. Okay, it's like a busting balls session all the time. So and you can't get away with shit. Like you say something, be like, remember 12 years ago, 12 years, 3 months, 42
we can do that
days
too.
ago.
You try to do that quite frequently, actually. But anyway, go back to your story before we
Anyway,
get off.
I
those
forgot.
squirrel
See?
trails.
Anyway, but when I was sitting there, because I went through that stage when I first got into full-time interdiction,
Yeah.
dude, I was stopping 45 cars, 50 cars a day,
Yeah.
and I was searching 25.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like by the time I was done, I was like, bleh.
Oh yeah.
Plus I would go to the gym for 3 hours a day before. So by the time I was done, I was like, shit, I'm ready to go to bed.
Mhm.
Right. But that's actually part of it because it goes into development of that becoming the chameleon.
Communication
Because-
aspect of it.
Right. You're doing the trial and error. If you know I need to expose myself to most of the things in order to have a wider world view, some of the things that initially through all those traffic stops you start keying on as being an abnormality, you start realizing that on an interstate system or through like a U.S. highway that's going through several different states, that some of those behaviors and some of those cultural traits are literally, you're being exposed to the outside of what is norm, right?
Right.
So as time goes along, you start recognizing, even though this car that drives by and behaves this way seems to be odd in comparison to someone locally acting that way, but we'll use an example of somebody registered out of Laredo. When they see the car in the median and they drive by, they're going to react different than somebody living in, one of them towns north of the interstate,
Right.
because they're used to seeing it out there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So then you go stop them and you're like, why did this guy behave this way? And then the communication itself, you realize that there's linear, non-linear, all these different aspects. Over a period of time, 2 years later, when you've experienced that a lot, when you see that behavior, you look at it and go, car's out of Laredo. Okay, that makes sense. Because repeatedly you've dealt with that over and over, where you have come up to the, I guess you would say, like the final opinion that I can expect that from those people from there, because it has been consistent.
Right.
95% of the time, it's been fear not associated with my presence. It's just how they've dealt with traffic stops or how their culture deals with traffic stops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So at the beginning, yes, there's a lot of, and for those of you who are watching that may be in, interdiction trying to learn, the one thing that I see people who get into interdiction and we'll get into the terrorism, is they're wanting that final result of someone with 15 years on that's gone through all that process to I guess you would say, hone in their skills. They're wanting that result within 2 months, right?
Shit, they
So
want that result as soon as they get out of class and go to the highway.
Well, they want that
now.
result
I mean,
because what they see
Yeah.
is on a Facebook group, somebody popped 235 pounds of fentanyl.
Yeah.
And they're working the same interstate 5 states over. So they're getting on the interstate expecting that 200-pound fentanyl load. But instead of going, okay, I need to figure out what all they went through, they want to go, okay, what made you stop that car? What were the quickest indicators? What's the one thing you keyed on? And it's like, it's not one thing. It's a magnitude of different things while you're trying to go through the process of elimination to make sure what you're seeing is not associated with something that's not criminal. You get what I'm saying? And that's where the
Absolutely, yeah.
culture and being a chameleon comes in, because how you interview someone who's a Caucasian male from, let's say, Northern California is not the same way you interview someone, and how you process that interview and how you understand the communication is if you stop somebody from El Paso,
Sure.
right? Because now you're throwing in the Hispanic culture. Now you're throwing in the linear versus nonlinear communication style, right?
Right.
Then you got to throw in, what if English is their second language? Because you're taught that when you ask a question and there's a delay or a repeating, that they're lying because they're trying to formulate an answer. So that's buying time to lie, when in reality, you're asking in an East Texas accent, where y'all headed to? To the Mexican guy who's never met a guy from East Texas goes, pardon?
What'd
And you
say?
go, ooh, there's a delay. And then, where y'all headed to? Now you slow it down
Guilty.
and louder. And the guy still goes, where y'all headed? I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand. Then you go, where are you going? Oh, where I'm going to Atlanta. Because he didn't understand. But that period of time where the guy's trying to figure out what the is he saying, if you focus only on deceptive behavior, it sounds like he's buying more time
Sure.
to formulate an answer.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But what happens is a lot of guys try to skip over all that and go, okay, what did you see? What did he say? What was the story? And then how did you find it? Like, there's 4 elements that are always asked about. And that's because it's constantly reinforced. When you see a seizure posted in a closed group or on like an intel bulletin, they bring it down to simplistic elements, which conditions people to look for simplistic application.
Yeah.
When in reality, I always tell people, working interdiction is no different than looking for like a long-term relationship, right? You don't look for a long-term relationship Tinder style. You don't just go 5 elements listed, swipe right, and you got your wife. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She may be a wife for the night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But because in order to have a long-term relationship, you have to like know more. You have to communicate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
But what happened with the way the society is now, even guys who are getting into interdiction, they're wanting that quick answer. Like, give me a list of 5 things I need to look for so I can maximize that return, because they're coming in and they're wanting to skip that 15 years worth of, intellectual growth,
Right.
and they're trying to replace it with quick answers. You see what I'm saying? So then they get on the road and they're expecting those results, and then they do it for 6 months. They're like, I'm not fucking cut up
Kind
for
of like
this.
shooting paper targets versus still targets.
Yeah.
If I shoot paper, I'm not getting a response, but when I shoot still and hit it, it's a
Interdiction is like not
self-rewarding.
only still targets, but they're moving around behind barrels and shit,
Right.
because there's dynamics keeps changing.
Just because you hit the steel target doesn't mean you got a good hit on a steel
Right,
target.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it
But
doesn't.
Yeah,
it's-
you might have hit
for
the
sure.
wrong steel target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they tell you there's 6 of them over there, hit the second one, you keep hitting the fourth one. Hell, yeah, you're hitting the target, but it ain't the one they told you to.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. No, I
Yeah.
get you.
So and that's the problem with interdiction. Is such a complex application because the dynamics change, the people change, the road changes, the targeting
Bro,
changes.
it's not even just interdiction. I think it's even street level at this point.
At this point,
Yeah.
dude, I ain't worked the street since
It's,
1998.
I think it's as a whole, we have to decide when we enter this profession what's
Hey,
what
man,
do we.
You got friendly geckos? 'Cause
Yeah,
this song going
yeah,
right
it
here.
might
Want to get on?
attack you though. You're Middle Eastern.
Oh, where'd it go?
All right,
That
that's
song
that's
goes
a
like a
joke for the
chameleon.
viewing public.
Yeah, right.
Oh, there you are. It's all turned like bright green. Hey, look at here.
It's that time of year, man.
As long as it's
But I
not
think
beef.
as a whole, it's once again it all results back to communication, social media as a whole. What we're dealing with as a society, even in law enforcement. And I've told him 1,000 times, probably gets tired of hearing it. It all boils down to how we talk to people and the interview process when we're talking to folks.
Yeah, that's true.
It's,
Now, take it one step further. I don't know if you've seen the reports that come out that there is over 1,000 Islamic State Khorasan province, which is ISIS-K, they
Sure.
call them ISKP now,
Mhm.
that have been already entered the United States. They're like sleeper cells,
Mhm.
right? So an interdiction guy, a patrol guy, is out there making traffic stops, and now he comes across somebody and he's told, well, you got to be vigilant and look for terrorists, right? Imagine everything we've talked about, culture, communication, all of that. Now you've got to also think, now I'm dealing with a foreign culture. Now I'm dealing with foreign ideology, right? So now you're expected to be able to identify a terrorist, but nobody even knows how to do that.
Yeah.
So, and there isn't really any training, because it's just like the alert thing we were talking about. Every training after a terrorist attack has to do with how to respond better to it, right? But okay, and I need to actually, next podcast I do get really in depth with it, because I've got
we've become a reactive society versus
Right.
proactive.
right, but I've got the audio of the guy who was going on January 1st, where he made a phone call to his family as he's driving down Interstate 10, talking about, I was gonna, take y'all out, but I figured they're just gonna say it's a family thing, so I'm gonna go take out non-believers in New Orleans, and he's calm as shit.
Yeah.
He's literally calm. So at that point, your detection can't even be relying on behaviors or fear-based response, because someone who has the ideology that they're going to be martyred, they're not fearful of anything. They're not going to lie. Where are you headed to? New Orleans? What's going on? New Year's party? Are you meeting people there? No, I'm just kind of go by myself, kind of look around, going to walk around a little bit, drive around, see what they got. He's telling you what he's doing, right?
Right.
And you're like, oh, okay. You're not getting any deceptive behaviors because he's got such a strong conviction. He's not going to
Doesn't
exhibit
display 'em.
fear. He's not exhibiting fear, because a smuggler will exhibit fear because he's worried about the consequence of being arrested and going to jail and losing his boss's dope and all this other stuff.
Right.
That's an immediate hindrance to his activity and a consequence that requires prison time.
Right.
That dude who's going to go shoot people up, he don't care about prison time, because he knows he's not walking away from it. He has already made that mindset. So when you get into terrorism interdiction, that's a whole new element you got to add, because now you're talking about if it's somebody from overseas with a different communication style, plus now you got to start questioning ideology, because and a lot of people don't realize this, and a lot of Muslim people don't realize this. When you hear the term somebody's a Muslim, at best you go, are they Shia or Sunni? Right?
Right.
That's like saying somebody's a Christian and you go, are they Orthodox or are they Protestant?
But it's much more than that.
Under each one,
Right. Yeah.
it breaks off.
Right.
And I think we looked at it, last night before? Right? We were talking about like different denominations
Mhm.
and different religions. And if you look it up, you can look it up in Google. How many different denominations of Christianity? There are 45,000 different denominations of Christianity worldwide.
Yeah.
That's what they have, I guess, were able to identify.
Right.
So if you want to pick out somebody who has the ideology of Westboro Baptist Church, right?
Right.
You would have to know what the foundational ideology of a normal Christian is to be able to see that they're taking the same text and they're twisting it into a different definition, and then they're inserting their own, opinions and all this. But when you look at the Islamic religion, there's at least 180 different denominations.
Right.
Right? Sure, you're going to hear them all say Quran. You're going to hear a lot of them say Hadith. You're going to hear some of them say Sunni. You're going to hear some of them say Shia, right? They're literally telling you there's the Bible, there's the study Bible, and there's Orthodox, and then there's Protestant. That's all you know. So the Western society has no clue. But yet, cops, FBI, feds are expected to know which one is going to be a threat, because that kind of threat is an ideological threat. Yes, when they go to do an attack, it becomes a physical threat, right? But terrorists here, unlike smugglers, they're carrying guns, and, dope dealers are carrying guns, and thugs are carrying guns, and, people who are smuggling, they're carrying dope.
Sure.
Terrorists are going around having their little meetings and doing all that stuff. They're not carrying all the, attack stuff with them. That only comes into play when they're in not the planning stage, but on the actual deployment stage, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't know how to test that ideology, how are they supposed to catch terrorists? So every time you have a terrorist attack, a bunch of money is poured into, let's get law enforcement trained on first responders to recognize terrorists, but yet nobody even knows that, of what you're supposed to test for. So what do they default to? Well, look for a guy who's got a kufi on his head, he's got a big beard, and he's shaved his arms.
Well, ultimately, we're talking about the radicalization of religion, right?
Yes.
And generally speaking, so you could talk about Nazis or any
Anybody.
kind of terrorism, right? So when you go to interview people like that, what you're saying essentially is you have to be aware enough of the world around you to understand that there's a baseline of these people that exist.
Exactly.
So knowing a little bit about Islam, knowing a little bit about Christianity, knowing a little bit about the Jewish faith, stuff like that.
Yes.
So being able to say, hey, I know that your views on these things are different based on how you respond to these. So
Yes.
you're not asking questions from a perspective of like, where are you going, where you
Yeah.
because those are going to be lies. We know that, right? But these people are going to tell you the truth, but we need to know, okay, do you see these things in a tweaked light, right? So I've read a little bit of the Quran. I'm not going to say I'm in any way expert on it, but it'd be the same as asking somebody who, to talk about Leviticus, right?
Right.
And the way that people will talk about Leviticus and the way that people dive into it and say that, gay marriage versus, but there's those other parts, right?
Right.
So we need to be able to ask them those questions of the parts of the Quran that they may be misinterpreting. So
Right.
where would you start in a conversation like that?
So the one thing I'll tell you, I want to say one thing, there's a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
To keep it simplified, you have the Quran,
Mhm.
right? Which is a book that was written in what you call classical Arabic
Sure.
or Hijazi Arabic, 7th century Arabian Peninsula style of Arabic, which is almost like a poetry, right? It's almost like reading Shakespeare.
Right.
It is not linear.
Mhm.
There's a emotional connection. There is a historical connection. There is a moral lesson to be learned, not necessarily a direct verbatim of the action, right? So if you read a chapter, literal translation of word for word in English, because some of it doesn't even translate correctly, it is this whole scenario took place. What is the moral lesson you learn from this whole chapter, right? It's like a storytelling, right? Some of it
Similar to Psalms.
Similar, yes.
In the Bible.
The-
Yeah,
the,
not exactly.
the difference is every denomination has to rely on what they call exegesis, to kind of bring forth what is the moral lesson, right? And exegesis in Arabic and in Farsi is called tafsir. So you'll hear when you talked about Muslims, hey, why do you read the Quran? They say, well, you got to get this one because it has the tafsir. And this is a problem I have with the Middle Eastern community. They can't let go of the Arabic names, and they're telling a bunch of white people what tafsir, you're like, tafsir. I just said it's exegesis. You understand the word exegesis, right? People from my part of the world, they can't let go of certain root words and they keep repeating them. Like, for example, Sharia. Sharia just means path, a way of life.
Yeah.
So if you take the Talmudic law and the Talmudic things that, and I'm kind of trying to draw a parallel, right? If someone is a Orthodox Jew, right, they're going to practice their lifestyle based on the 613 mitzvahs they have, right? Which means how they live their life. Collectively, how you live that life is according to the Jewish Sharia. So essentially, when you look at like the tafsir is what explains what these verses are about, right?
Right.
But then to understand the tafsir, there's different tafsir or exegesis, because exegesis pulls from hadith. Hadith are like examples of these hundreds of thousands of different sayings that somebody heard, this, what this person said, that person said, this person said, and they try to collectively utilize all those references that brings in culture, that brings in language, that brings in events to try to say, okay, this is what this poetry means. So you can see where that's why there's so many different denominations, because one group may not subscribe to one set of hadith or these sayings, which affects how the exegesis is explained, right?
Right.
And it affects the elements of how these decisions are made, ultimately trying to say how this verse is interpreted and what it's supposed to mean, right?
Right.
It's so complex that even Muslims themselves, because unlike the United States where you're born into a variety of different religions, you could be living here and he could be a Baptist and the next door neighbor is a Catholic, and then that one across the street is a Hindu, and then that one over there is a Presbyterian. So through dialogue and through conversation, you kind of get familiarized with other branches of the same religion, right? You just know, well, this is what we believe, and this is what the Baptists believe, and this is what the Methodists believe, and this is what the Pentecostals believe. In the Middle Eastern world, when you're born into a specific family, from a specific tribe, from a specific ethnicity, you're practicing a religion that entire tribe practices. Unless you're in like a metropolitan area like Beirut, Lebanon, where you have a mixture of different people.
Sure.
If you're from a town of 5,000 people from southern Lebanon, more than likely you're going to be a Shia, because that's what the majority of the religious beliefs are, right? It's kind of like saying you go to Mississippi, majority of people are Southern Baptist. So if you're grown, and so imagine Southern Lebanon, your only brand of Islam is that Shia theology, but then under Shia, there's 7 or 8 different madhabs meaning like branches. And each one is going to interpret things differently. So the ones in Southern Lebanon, they may follow one person, one Ayatollah, or one equivalent to like a pope, right?
Okay.
Which them being born into that tribe, being born into that environment, being born into that village, that's the only version of Islam they know. So all the other Islam is wrong. When somebody is born in, let's say, northern Iraq, which would be Kurdish territory, they may subscribe to a specific school of thought or madhab under the Sunni school of thought. But even though they're Sunni, they're not going to interpret things the same way a Sunni from Egypt would do it, because they're a different branch. Right. But because they grew up in these environments and it's very tribal, they're not familiar with the rest of them. Correct? So when I say that even most Muslims don't realize there's so many different denominations, because they grew up in a specific environment, they came to the United States. So here they just identify everybody as Muslim. They don't realize, hey, I got to go look back and go, wait a minute. We didn't grow up. And the shock factor is like this, and I say this all the time, to kind of put things in perspective when it comes to the Western society in the United States. Somebody who was born in a small town of 2,000 people in rural Mississippi, the only thing they're exposed to, right, in that 2,000, and I'm not going to say like a 10,000 town, because in 10,000 in any part of the United States, you're going to get different variations.
Right.
Let's say a 2,000, 500. Most people go to First Baptist Church, right? There may be another Baptist church. There may be a couple of other ones, but majority of people would be Baptist. Imagine that person has never encountered anyone from Salt Lake City, Utah. And they make a trip to Salt Lake City and they meet a Mormon. But they never knew Mormons were there. So when they start engaging them in Christian theology, they go, what the you're not even Christian.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And I'm not getting into the whole thing, because I know a lot of people are like, well, Mormons aren't Christians, well, Catholics aren't. Well, I'm not getting into the theological battle. But what I'm saying is the pinnacle of all these different denominations is Jesus Christ.
Right.
That's where it starts. In Islam, is literally the same way. It starts, it's affected by which tribe they're born into, what the lineage is, what ethnicity, what that specific tribe practices, and then how they interpret things based on the Quran, based on who they follow in the Hadith. Because one group who may be Egyptian, and I'm using this as an example, and I'm not saying this is all what they do, every single one, but a group out of Egypt may not prescribe to a hadith that was given by someone who's got a Persian background, because they're like, Persians don't know what they're talking about. We're not going to believe what this guy says. We're going to go based on the guy who's from Saudi Arabia, because he's closest to us when it comes to ethnicity. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
So then that affects how they interpret.
Okay.
So you see all these so when you're talking about a baseline to try to figure out who's got a screwed up ideology that would do stupid shit, when you don't have most of the country, including law enforcement and even FBI and NSA and CIA, they're not understanding all of this to the full capacity, they default to that, well, it must be just Islam. That's what they all want to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because they don't realize, no, it's a small percentage. If you look at the whole religion, 2.1 billion, there's a saying that like 20% are radical. No, I would say 20% are traditional. Under the traditional, right?
Right.
You have fundamentalists, right? Under fundamentalists, you have extremists, ideological wise, and under extremists, then you have what you call violent extremists. And I'm trying to give it an English term to kind of show you that even though you may have people who would be orthodox, right? Meaning they're going to follow things to like the 7th century style, right? And how they interpret traditions. It would be like, compared to the other 80%, they're being too extreme. They're being fundamentalists, right?
Right.
But even under that, it breaks down to even more extremists, because now you take someone who comes from a tribe or from an environment where violence is how things are run, machismo, right? And then they have a skewed interpretation and a literal translation without using logic. They become the ISIS, the Taliban, the Hamas, because now they think the violence is the way to do shit. You see what I'm saying?
I got you. Yeah.
So you can't really blame US or people in the West to just kind of get fearful, because if you think about it, and this is kind of set the whole thing, because this is like one of those podcasts where if we get into that, it's going to be a 6-hour podcast. Right. And I'm eventually going to start getting into it to kind of put things in perspective. But imagine you already have a Western society that's not familiar with so many different dynamics and all the nuances that affect, how people believe. But literally the only introduction they got right at the beginning is like the late 70s when the hostage shit happened with Iran.
Yeah.
Then the next one is what happens with the not the Iran-Iraq war, but the what do you call it?
The Gulf War?
The Gulf War, right? All the, Allah Akbar, boom, blowing shit up, right? And then you've had throughout history hijackings in Europe and, specific groups, like, taking out a bunch of Jewish athletes in I think it was in Berlin. I don't remember exactly where it was at.
Yeah.
Was it like
You're talking about the Olympics?
Yes. So on this side, the only exposure is that extreme interpretation and the extremist, because it's violence.
Right.
Then you add 9/11 on top of that, right?
Right.
And at the time, yes, you had a lot of Middle Eastern people here. You almost didn't hear a peep out of them, because they were like, shit, what are we supposed to do? right? That's not us. And the way the Middle Eastern culture is, you don't stand up and say anything because the backlash culturally has drastic effects, because most of Middle Easterners come to the United States, they go live in pockets like Dearborn, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, LA, Houston, Dallas. They kind of keep to themselves. Not that they approve what these people are doing, but they also run businesses that relies on other Middle Eastern people
Right.
for income, right? If you go to Collin County, where all that epic stuff is going on right now, with the epic, what is it? That's
Housing edition.
the housing edition. Collin County has the largest Middle Eastern and Muslim population in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Why? Because they're more affluent people. They're usually, engineers, doctors, stuff like that. They got a shit ton of money, right? So with that stuff, but when something bad happens, they're embarrassed, right?
Yeah.
And culturally, most of them that own businesses, their customers are Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
So if they go against the tribal loyalty expectation and say something, it's almost like they're turning their back on the Middle East. Because the one thing about Middle Eastern people, they can't separate politics from religion. If somebody does something religiously, they look at it from a political perspective.
Right.
They go, oh, well, Hamas did this because they're Palestinians, because they're oppressed by the Israelis, not realizing to the Western society, you're justifying what Hamas is doing by giving an excuse because they're Palestinians. No,
Right.
Palestinians will need to stand up and say, hey, they have our name, but we don't believe in the sick crap that they do. Yes, there are people, but there are our thugs.
Yeah.
If they stand up and say that, the American guy goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I hear you.
So they would be more empathetic to go. But then what happens is they don't say that because, shit, I own a tire shop, I own a donut shop, I own a restaurant. And if I shit talk the Palestinians and don't say I'm supporting them politically, I'm going to lose a lot of business. You see what I'm saying? So
That
there's
makes
that
sense.
whole dynamic that works on the back end. So you have people not say anything. Now, there are some that do it, but they're not given a voice. I can't just call the local media and say, hey, come interview me because I want to put things in perspective and tell the people. The media is like, that's not going to give me enough rating. F you. So I never get the airtime.
Sure.
So then they decide that they're going to get on YouTube and Facebook and do it. But dude, if the algorithm's not picking you up, you're not going to reach far.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because
Right.
the most powerful way to get the message out is through national media. And national media don't give a shit, because you know what? If I can spread negativity, it's going to get me more clicks and I'm going to get more money because of the commercials, right?
Yeah,
That's
for
why
sure.
you own a carpet cleaning business and you want to do a commercial here, right? Or you want to put it on ABC, NBC, whoever. On prime time, it's one price. 2 a.m. is another price. You want to do it at the Super Bowl? That thing that would cost you $2,500, the Super Bowl is $30 million.
Right.
Why? Because that's when people are watching, so you get the most exposure. That's how the media works.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So all of that to say, for a cop, for law enforcement, to prevent the next attack and be able to recognize these signs of danger, they don't even have the foundational baseline to compare it to. So what happens with typical law enforcement response? We wait till shit hits the fan. I mean, look what happened after New Orleans. First thing, oh, he drove through the sidewalk? Instead of saying, hey, we got to combat extremism, we got to try to figure out what this guy's ideology was. How do we prevent this from happening? How do we educate the people that if the guy says something, they let us know that we need to watch him, you know what I'm saying, to prevent
Sure.
it happening? They go, oh, you know what? We need to put better barricades, because if those barricades were supposed to be there and weren't there, he wouldn't have drove. But dude, if somebody's going to go out and shoot up a bunch of people, put the barricades. He's going to go on a bicycle, right?
Right.
His goal is to get through that thing, right? It doesn't
Right.
mean everybody's going to drive an F-150 pickup, right? Okay, you can't put a bicycle. Oh, we can't do that. He's going to sit across the street in a tall building and shoot with a rifle, right? If someone wants to do something, they will improvise.
You can't beat a motivated person.
You can't beat a motivated person, but if you identify the motivated person, now the intelligence community can start watching them, and they do that all the time. The
Sure.
problem is there's only so much information they have, right?
Right.
To see what people are doing here behind closed doors. If a member of the Middle Eastern community is radicalized and they're going to do something, somewhere along the line, when they're in contact with somebody from the Middle Eastern community, they're going to slip up and say something where the normal Muslim guy is going to go, First, they try to talk to him, brother, you're not supposed to do this. This is not what the prophet said. But that guy insists, no, and they see where this guy is not going to be changed back around. They would be the first ones to call the FBI or call the local police and say, hey, man, we got a next door neighbor over here. He's saying some crazy ass shit. He doesn't represent us. You guys need to start watching him, right? Because they don't want to deal with the backlash, right? The problem is it's got to the point where the Middle Eastern people don't even want to call the cops because within the community, they think the cops are just don't like them because they're Muslims.
It's fair.
You see what I'm saying?
No, yeah, it makes perfect
and that's
sense.
when you look at it from a Middle Eastern perspective, you're like, well, shit, no wonder they're not saying something. If they say something, they're going to get backlash culturally. But then also, if they say something, they're going to get targeted by people because of shit that's online. You know what I'm saying? And then you got people get into law enforcement training and basically, because I've seen videos of this former FBI agent that gets up there and says, Islam wants to take over the world and Islam wants to do this. And I'm like, huh? Are you speaking as a religious comparative religion? Are you speaking politically? Or are you just bashing a religion?
Well, I mean, technically, any religion's goal would be to gain as many followers as possible, right? I mean, that would be no matter what. That's going to be the goal.
Evangelism.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you want to add people to you because the idea is that you want to get as many people to go to your heaven as possible. Right,
whichever heaven, you know.
So
the Jewish heaven, the Christian heaven, the Islamic heaven. Which, if you look at the root of it, it's all the same heaven. It's just like different pathways to get there, right? And I'm not going to talk about theology, but what happens is you got people that have a title of former FBI agent, former lieutenant. To the average public, they're listening to the guy that has to carry the name FBI. Mm-hmm. It automatically gives that sense of validity because the FBI is the all-knowing, right?
Right.
You got a guy who's given an opinion about something because he was a lieutenant or he's a former special forces guy. People go, he knows he was there. Right? He's dealt with it, so he speaks the truth. When in reality, the Muslims themselves don't know about all these denominations. How do you expect some dude that has experience with the radical part to know what the baseline is in comparison to the radical? But if you ask any military guy, when you were in Middle East, when you were with the Kurds, what religion were they?
Majority were Muslim.
Right. Did you worry about standing over there? Maybe a couple of retards here and there would act stupid, but for the most part, who was cooking you the fish, were you worried about him stabbing you too?
Oh, no.
Why? Because you got to know him and you realize what the norm is.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, I was just in there listening to y'all. It's no different when you go into white supremacy or Black Panthers or whatever. That is a percentage of the population that have their view, their thoughts on what they think things should be. And it's no different within the Muslim religion.
Right.
I wouldn't even dare get into how deep you break that stuff down. But
you know, it's funny. He spent a lot of time over there, and he's like, "Holy shit! I didn't even know it was." I don't. I'm like, and he lived there for like 6 years.
It's above my pay grade, but
above my pay grade.
But what I do know, when simple test terms for us police, it boils down to you have to understand that it doesn't matter in any section that there's always a small percentage that they're not they got those beliefs that they want to take over, they want to kill people, whatever it is, to get their point across, and it doesn't. No, and we had guys that I trust my life with that was. I'm not going to get into it on here, but guys that were Muslim, and you talk to them and you look at them like, bro, why are you doing that? That doesn't fit your deal. No, bro, it's okay.
Right. Yeah, once you've experienced it and you've seen it, you start realizing, hey, wait a minute.
And how many of them want to be Western?
Do what now?
How many of them like the Western lifestyle?
Dude, most Middle Easterners would die to get a visa and come to the United States.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. So there's a lot of nuances, and it's a lot of different factors that goes into determining if somebody's an extremist. Sad part of it is you have an entire. What is the deal with all these damn hillbillies with their damn glass packs?
They're college, dude.
Yeah.
Really? Good Lord.
And I even get into you're talking about terrorism and breaking that down where they're not going to listen.
There's another one.
they're not going to elicit the same response as a smuggler,
Right.
you know, depending on the criminal activity.
Hold on. Redneck coming back. Hold on.
The straight
You wear a
pipe.
cowboy hat? Is that not you?
The straight pipe
Bro,
F-150.
but we're doing a podcast,
Yeah, it's in my
and this
neighborhood.
dude, why people? Does your truck sound like that?
No,
Why?
because
You don't have to prove to
old.
people you got big balls, do you?
I'm old.
You don't have to
Hey,
prove to
wait,
people
is
you
that how
got.
we prove we have bit? I need to
That's-
go, I need to
yeah.
go,
You get
I
a
need to go
muffler
straight
truck?
pipe my Camry.
Where I come from, they call that
Bumblebee.
little pecker syndrome.
No, that's the elevated trucks. No, mine's not jacked up.
That's the Carolina lean
Yeah.
or whatever you call it. Squirreled off
We
into
just
some other
squirreled
shit.
again. I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about how it's not, the deception's going to be the same within.
Yeah, within that, because they're so fixated that
Yes.
brainwashed, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it.
Dude, the perfect example is what was that guy's name? The serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
was
yeah.
so fixated that even when he came out with the cops didn't pick up nothing. Because psychologically, he was so gone.
Yeah.
He almost became a sociopath.
Right.
Well, you're literally with these ISIS people you're dealing with, and the Taliban people, and these people who are fanatics,
Same
they're
thing.
sociopaths.
Yeah.
They're sociopaths. You cannot pick out a lie from a sociopath because that's truly what they believe. They're not doing anything wrong.
Well, that, and I mean, their whole goal is to mask themselves with everybody
I was
else.
just going to say that.
Yeah,
I mean, you talk about Chameleon Cop. It's the same thing.
They're
Yeah.
a
They're
chameleon
true
criminal.
Yeah, they're true chameleons of that.
Yeah, but they
section.
don't try it. They're so freaking fixated that they become that way, right?
So would you see the deception more in the religious? So, you know, if you decided, because a lot of times we on the highway, we talk about a lot of different things. I might talk about somebody's kids or the cheer camp or whatever, right? So it, as a form of, or a line of, I guess, interviewing, you know, maybe talking about their religion and seeing how they react to the questions about their religion, or you know, and even talking about like KKK or any form of radical, but that would be the point at which you would start to see
what you end up
reaction.
having to do is you have to finesse your approach into asking about, and since this is going to be on regular social media, obviously there's going to be some jihadis watching it,
For sure.
right? And if you want to put a fatwa on me, bring it. Bring it. Look up what a tax stamp
You know
is,
where I
and then
work
bring it.
now.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
You know,
it don't.
they're not going to put a fatwa on you. They're going to put a fatwa on me, right? And I'll tell
Yeah, I'm
them,
not
I
sure
got I got tax stamps. If they're smart enough to know what a tax stamp is, bring it, because we're going to deal with it like we're in the Middle East. That's all I got to say.
About that later.
Huh?
We'll have to talk about that later. I
We're
don't know
gonna
what,
talk
what
about
you
that
got.
later.
What are you going to tax steps you got?
I mean, I'm going to hug you until you feel better.
Yeah. This ain't California, but this ain't California. I got gators in the back of my house. They got to eat too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to tame them down. That way they don't attack us.
I like it.
You know
I
what I'm saying?
like
So you
it.
just kind of.
You got
Not
yourself
me.
a
I'm going to
medieval
talk
moat.
to you, and I'm going to talk you off the cliff that you're about to jump off.
See, that's modern policing.
See, that's different. That's different. To me, being a Middle Eastern, when somebody's that far gone, hurry up and jump. You're going by yourself, though, because you're a menace to society. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is. And I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, that poor guy. Sure, he had all these bombs and stuff, but he was hurt when he was a child. No, he wasn't. He was programmed that way. And you're basically dealing with an animal that just happens to
Absolutely. Yeah,
speak human
absolutely.
language.
And I was joking.
Huh?
I was joking earlier.
So you talk about like the terrorist attacks. You know, one that was kind of a big deal was the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Yes.
And that guy was radical. I think he, if I remember right, he was an American citizen. And he was radicalized by stuff he saw online.
Yes.
So people like that, where maybe they aren't going to have the look or the name or anything like that, you know, that you may be able to key up on. Is there a way to, you know, identify that person versus somebody who maybe is from the Middle East?
It is. Because, yeah, it's totally two different things. But both of them ends up with the same end result, right? And this being posted, and I was getting into it earlier, this being posted on open platforms like TikTok and, you know, different places. I don't want to get into too much of it in the open, but in the law enforcement class, right? I actually go into which elements you question about, you know? And we can talk about this offline, because that's the course that I'm building. It is so extremely comprehensive.
Mhm.
It's not like a theological course. It's more of a foundational baseline of all the different, you know, nuances that I talked about, but then how to hone in as
Gotcha.
to what all these people Because when those people have that kind of conviction, when it comes to specific questions, they'll tell you the truth. You know what I'm saying? I'll give I give an example. This is not one of them, but give an example. Let's say that we use the subject of, in a specific strain of Islam, being gay means death penalty, right? Right.
Right.
This is more cultural, right? But let's say that it's related to religion.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because of how the tafsir and how the exegesis was explained as to what you do with them, you know, as far as punishment. As someone who is that far gone, when you ask them, what do you think about transsexual people? You'll see that they'll just look at you and go, I don't believe in them. And you say, so what do you think is going to happen? They're going to hell. So what would happen if you meet someone who's transsexual and they'll go, I don't want to discuss this. A normal Muslim would be like, hopefully they'll find a path and they'll change their way, because that's not what God expects. You see the difference?
Sure. Yeah, I
When
gotcha,
the
I
guy
gotcha.
says, I don't want to discuss this, because he goes, I would kill him in his head. He
Right.
just doesn't want to verbalize it.
Yeah.
When a normal person said they're just misguided, hopefully they will find truth and repent, which is the same thing what a Christian would say, right?
Yeah.
Except some fundamentalist Christian, if they had that type of culture where they would want to impose that punishment here versus letting God handle it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hear you.
Most of your Muslims would be like, they're misguided. They don't know. We would try to explain to them that this is something against God's law, this and that and the other, in hopes that they would be educated and repent. The one who would actually, he'd go, I don't want to talk about it. Because he's replaying what he would do over there. He just knows saying that here makes him look bad.
Right.
You know, and I'm not saying that's exactly what they would say, but you would see the avoidance.
What's the difference between Westboro Baptist Church and your Baptist church on the corner here? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You just add the violence to
Yeah,
it
for
in
sure.
this way. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure if we were in a society where Westboro Baptist Church could go arm themselves, because I don't know if people know this, you were in Middle East. Everybody over there can buy whatever the gun they want. There is no ATF. There is no 3-day hold time. There is no forms you got to fill out. There is no tax stamp. You go, Abdul, I want AK-47, but I want from Russia, right?
Yeah.
He says, Habibi, I got you, no problem. He picks up the phone. He calls Amir, yeah. What name of Abdullah? He was friends with the guy in Lebanon, yeah. You have that gun, you know, the one with 30 round magazine, have big bullets, yeah. My friend, he wants, how much you find one? He said, oh, I have one, I give you 800. So this guy calls the other guy and says, I found one for you, 1,800, right? Because somewhere along the way, he's got to up the price so he can make some money too, right? It's not a favor anymore.
Right.
That's just the way it works. But that's how easy it is. If you go to the Middle East, let me ask you this. If you go to the Middle East, could you watch a movie there and it only been in the theaters here for 3 days?
Oh, yes.
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 Let me tell you what happened. 2012.
They were usually on DVDs. Already.
Yeah, they were on DVD. Yeah, they were on DVDs. But listen, I fly to Amman, Jordan, right? I spent a lot of time in the Middle East, right? Different countries.
Right.
I fly to Amman, Jordan, and I think it was when I got to look it up. It's either Taken 2 or Taken 3 had just came out.
Yeah.
Right. And literally, I flew out of Chicago on Thursday, and Taken was coming out Friday. You know, they usually release on
Yeah,
Friday. So I get there Friday night. No shit, on Saturday because of the jet lag.
Yeah.
We're just wasting some time, and we're going to different shops and shit. Right. We're going to different shops and shit. And no shit. I go into this, my brother-in-law at the time, he says, you want to watch movies? And I'm like, I don't want to go to the movies. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking he wants me to take
Yeah,
you to
yeah,
the
yeah.
movies. He says, no. I take you to the store. You get whatever movie you want. One came out yesterday. We have it. And I was like, what store is this? So we go into the store, right?
Yeah.
And the way the stores are, it's not like a store here. It's like down the street, there's like little shops, right? So we go into one, and they have millions of freaking DVDs. And right there in the front, there's like 20 freaking Taken 2. And I was like, This shit came out yesterday. And the guy comes over there and says, "You are from America?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Movie I get 4 hours ago. We have 25 more being made right now. I give it to you $2. You can have it." And I said, "How did y'all get the movie?" He said, "Look, we have connections. We get it." And he says, "This one, premium high definition, no one walking in the screen." That's what he says.
Camcorder copy.
So what happens is, when a movie comes out of here, some little dude named Ahmed runs up to the movie. He takes his freaking camera and he sets it up in the back, and he's got one of those like a omnidirectional microphones, because the movie theater has got that IMAX thing and it's picking up, and he just sets it up on the thing, and it'll be in the back, right?
Yeah.
He sits in the back and he's filming the whole thing. He gets it all zoomed in, and they put it on covert mode where nobody can see it. And then in the middle of it, you see some dude stand up.
The shadow.
The shadow, right? And then somebody over there is like, and is picking it up on the microphone. But they have it that quick, because that's how it works, right? So imagine if you can get a DVD that quick, buying a gun is nothing.
Right.
Because unlike the U.S. border, where you have fences and you have border patrol, you go to the border over there, you're looking over here, you're looking over there, ain't nobody there. You just walk across the creek, you're in the other country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and people on horseback. That's why the Kurds were like the best freaking smugglers in the Middle East, because they're spread across 4 countries. And when Iranians want to escape Iran, they use the Kurds to smuggle into Turkey or Iraq, right? When the Syrians want to, and they always use the Kurds, because they're known as the good smuggler. Like the Kurds would be equivalent to like Sinaloa cartel.
I was gonna say, the
you know what I'm saying?
like the cartel.
And that's how they smuggle dope too. But they're on jackasses and old beat up pickup trucks, and they're driving down the mountain and in the desert, and and all kinds of shit. But you imagine somebody calls and says, "Hey, I want 14 AK-47s." The guy calls a Kurdish guy or calls a Syrian guy and says, "Hey, we need this," and they're like, "Oh yeah, we bring it to you," and they tell them the price, and then they'll meet him in like a desert at the border and hand it to him, and that guy goes and gives it to the family. I'll give you a story. When I was over there, I went to a wedding at a church, right? And the bride and the groom come up the steps to go in the church. And there was a guy over there. He was U.S. government at the embassy. He's an Arab dude. And he knew who I was. I knew who he was. And we're standing over there talking. And they're playing the freaking music, like literal freaking drums and shit. And it's loud as fuck, right? And I'm like, God. And now they're all screaming. I got video of it, as a matter of fact. I got the video of what I'm fixing to tell you. I'll post it. I'll post it in the group. I'll post it in the group, in the Facebook group. And shit you not, me and him, he's packing, right?
Yeah.
I'm packing.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's packing over there, right? But I'm packing anyway, regardless. Bruh, we're here, and imagine where the cars are parked.
Yeah.
Like fully automatic freaking AKs. And I go, oh, shit. This is a Christian wedding. We're in Amman, Jordan. I'm thinking some freaking radicals done showed up and shooting up. I look in the parking lot and I'm ducking behind like the big flower pots and shit, right? And the dude that I'm with, he kind of ducks. He turns around and he says, it's okay. It's okay. It's just a celebration. It was like a Cinco de Mayo. Guys in suits, 6 of them standing outside, 2 AKs in each hand, in the middle of the church parking lot. Shooting up in the air. Dude, I almost shit myself, because I'm thinking, oh my God, I done made it all the way over here, put all these cartel people in jail. I'm gonna come over here, go to a wedding, get shot up by ISIS. But that's how it is. It's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal. So every party, people are shooting. So it's not hard to get a gun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Imagine if it was that easy for members of the Westboro Baptist Church to just be able to arm themselves like that and then just go out to whichever other church or whatever and just shoot people up.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's what they do, but it's the same analogy of an
It's the
extreme
idea,
group being able to get their hands on weapons and do shit. You see what I'm saying?
I got you, for sure.
Totally different dynamics in the Middle East. Totally different. What you got to add there, Dinger?
Nothing.
None?
Sounds like you covered it.
Yeah. You're thinking about hummus, ain't you?
Yes, absolutely.
I tell you
I
the
could
story
do
about what
some
he
of
did
that.
when we went to Fadi's?
What are those deals Tamara cooked?
What was that? I think you might have been telling me.
What's
this right
falafel?
before.
No, not falafel. The
Chickpeas?
Chickpeas. Oh,
Chickpeas?
Yeah, I remember
That's
that.
what hummus is.
Well,
It's
no-
smashed up chickpeas.
right, but that was the night she actually cooked the chickpeas. I come over for something.
Oh, you're talking about going to the bathroom
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah.
This dude,
He's like, "Hey man, you need to try this." Well, I told her it was good.
Yeah.
I was like, "Bro, I got to go."
dude,
Shit.
he
I
ate a bowl of some chickpeas with some with some
shit.
pita bread.
Yeah.
You would have thought the damn Union Pacific was coming.
I got a tough stomach, bro.
So I take him to Fadi's, and we were over there. You see, we're talking about with that interview interrogation class.
Here we go.
Yeah, you don't like hearing about that. You want me to tell him about the pursuit?
I don't care. Try to break it. Let's tell the whole story though. If we're gonna tell it.
What, the
No, we
pursuit?
don't need to tell this. We don't need to tell that story at all.
Never mind.
Not in today's society.
Not in today's society. Yeah, but anyway, I think with the homeless. We
You
go in
tell
my
that.
patrol car. It's marked,
Yeah.
right? We're in uniform. We go to this Arabic restaurant, and it's in Galleria area in Dallas.
Okay.
Right? Like
gotcha.
ritzy, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
lunchtime. Like it's lunchtime. Remember that? So there was a bunch of it was other than the people who worked there, nobody else was Middle Eastern. Right? Everybody else is like normal. There was Chinese people, there were like probably Vietnamese people, there were Indian people in there,
Yeah.
all kinds of people. You know, it's a business area. So they're all running to get a quick bite. And Fadi's, it's kind of like Ryan Steakhouse, right? You remember Ryan Steakhouse?
Yeah.
No? You're
Yeah,
too
yeah.
young for Ryan Steakhouse? I
No,
don't
I think
know.
I know where that is.
You know
yeah.
where you go like you pick out what you want
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
pay at
okay,
the
yeah,
end?
yeah, yeah.
Right?
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same thing,
Yeah,
Fadi's. You go, I want a
lunchrooms.
dish with
Yeah.
2 meats and 3 sides, and then
Yeah.
you just pick out what you want.
Yeah.
And you pay at the end.
He tells the story every time.
Dude, but it's educational, right? So, so we show
Educational
up, we're in uniform, right?
at Dinger's expense.
Now I know,
No, it's funny.
I know the people who own it, they're Lebanese, right? They're Shia.
Mhm.
We come up, and the first place you pick out is your paste. So you have baba ganoush, you have hummus, and then you have like spicy hummus, and then you have
Yeah.
different kind of hummus, and then there's tabbouleh, which is like a salad.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So you pick that shit up first. He looks at the plate, he looks at the tray, and he goes, "What's that?" And I said, "That's hummus." And he goes, "It's Hamas?" Like that. And I'm like, "Oh shit." And the guy who's got the spoon in his hand, he goes and looks at him and he goes, right? And I'm like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I'm trying to like people like the whole restaurant, like quiet.
Yeah.
Like quiet. The
It did
guy
get
that's
quiet
at the
in there.
huh?
It did get quiet.
It did because he even admits
It's
it. 'cause
always
he's
when you
so-
say something like that is when it
He's so loud with that old damn country. That's Hamas, and like the whole place just goes. There's a guy on the gyros machine cutting the gyros off, and he just goes. He turns around and he starts staring. And when you see the Lebanese, especially Southern Lebanese, when
Yeah.
they look at you and they're serious, you're like, "Holy shit, the world's about to end," because they have like square jaws and they got this, hairline that's very defined, and they have that, the deep, dark, shit
yeah.
under their eyes, and I know they're Lebanese, and I'm like, "Oh, this ain't gonna be good. This ain't gonna be good." And I said, "Hey, man, no, it's hummus, Hamas." And I'm like, "Oh my God, oh my God." I look over, and there's a Vietnamese lady sitting over there, and she's like, looking at him like, "Who the is this idiot?" Right? Right? And I'm just like, "Dude, Hamas is a terrorist organization. This is hummus." He goes, "Oh shit, I didn't know." About that time. And then so I was like, because what he doesn't realize is the people behind the counter, they're Shia.
Mhm.
They would be supporting Hezbollah,
Yeah.
which is Shia. And at the time, Hamas, and even now, Hamas is Sunni.
Right.
They're fucking mortal enemies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So imagine, not only he's saying Hamas, he's calling them the mortal enemy of them themselves, right? So you can see it's like a double whammy of
Yeah.
hatred.
Yeah.
And then they go, "This idiots." That's what they're thinking. What ignorant bigot he is. He's calling out homeless Hamas. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, "Oh, shit." And then we go sit down to eat. He takes the pita bread, and he's trying to make tacos out of the damn shawarma
I
sandwich.
did. I made it.
And-
I did that too.
And he wants sriracha sauce to go with it. He was asking for pecani sauce. I'm like, "Bro, this is Arabic food. You don't need pecani sauce in Arabic
Still made that taco.
food." He still made
too,
the
huh?
Yeah, it
He
was.
still made the taco.
Mhm.
Man. Oh shit, the stories I give you.
In fact, when we went and taught that class up in Dallas, a few weeks ago. I still made a taco.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because we went. Where did we go? Andalus.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been
Andalus,
to that
yeah.
place. It was good.
Yeah, good. Have you ever been up there?
No, I haven't, but
It was good.
I'll eat a place called Masala
Yeah, you have
Walk.
fatties. Where?
Yeah. Masala Walk. You ever heard of that?
What's the name of it?
Masala Walk.
Where's that at?
It's in Austin. I eat there all the time, but there's one in Dallas. We eat there all the time, but I'll take the bread and I'll make us taco out of it. It's
Yeah,
Good pita sandwich, man.
delicious. Yeah, it's basically
yeah.
what it is. It's basically a
Yeah,
wrap.
Mexicanized damn Arabic food. I'm not even Arab and I'm
Bro,
offended.
But you say that even the guys over there would get them to order, and they go, "Yeah, you want shawarma? Yeah, man." They bring it with French fries.
With French fries.
Yeah, that was the best, dude.
To be fair, I'll
And that was over
Mexicanize
there. I'm like,
American
"Yeah,
food,
y'all
too."
want some French fries?"
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to take you to eat some Persian food.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Well, you had some Persian food when my mom was here.
Yeah.
When we made it on the mangal outside.
Yeah.
Remember the garage? The chicken and the beef and
Kebabs.
shit? The kebabs? Yeah, oof. You ain't never had Persian food?
No, I haven't.
So there's a couple places you need to try.
Well, not
There's,
that I know of. I mean,
Yeah, if you go to Dallas Fort Worth,
Yeah.
go to Andalus. Was
Okay.
it Andalus? I think is what the name of it is.
Yeah, it was only a couple blocks from where we were at.
Yeah, that's
It
in
wasn't bad.
Los Colinas.
yeah.
Yeah, it
And
was
then there's
good.
Damasis.
Never been there.
Damasis, and then there's Fadi.
How close is it to like Greek Mediterranean food?
Similar.
Okay.
Similar. And
Okay.
it depends because some of them are going to be like Moroccan.
Yeah.
Some of them would be like North African, we call them like Maghrebi.
So it's different, like the spices, isn't it? I think
Yeah,
or
it really
whatever, it
changes. You know, the look may change.
Yeah.
But it's the same basic concept. It's just one uses a certain spice, the other one uses another
I
spice.
was trying to think of the food that we ate in Turkey, what it was called, but it was super good. It was like
Well, Turkish food is
Yeah.
more kind of like a hybrid between Arabic and Greek.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah,
a
for sure.
hybrid.
You're making me hungry. I want to shawarma.
That's what I'm
now.
sitting here like, man. You
There
know,
ain't no Arabic restaurants here? Are you serious?
No, not anymore.
there's a kebab restaurant. I've never
Well,
been.
there was
on
one.
Broadway.
It was more Greek. There in the new shopping complex, and it closed or something
You
else.
know where
now,
the
though.
Pizza
But
Hut
they got
is?
good hummus, huh?
You know where the Pizza Hut is on South Broadway?
Yeah.
There's right across from there. There's that little shopping center. There's a little kebab restaurant right there. I
Oh,
don't know.
you
It
what?
says it's
There
Mediterranean
is.
food.
You remember what was her Pori that I worked with off duty? I told you she was Iranian, and I can't
Where,
think
there
of
was an
the.
Iranian chick here?
Yeah.
Where?
We talked about it.
At
I
Dillard's?
think y'all knew each other. Yeah.
At Dillard's?
Yes. Her name was Pori. She's up in Dallas now. Up there with the kids.
Oh.
You know who I'm talking about. But she told me about a place, and it's funny. We actually, I was like, you know what, we're going to eat here, and it's over there. It's
They
on
don't-
South Broadway.
Back behind the shopping center.
Yes, it's kind of secluded,
It's
bro.
secluded,
Yeah, because remember, I think I
but
sent
it's
you
not really
pictures.
authentic. That's more of a like a 60% Americanized.
Yeah.
Now, you want to get some authentic?
No, bro, but when I walked in there, me and my wife, shit stopped because I mean you can tell it's a cultural. That's where they go.
Yeah.
And families were eating and shit. And we walked in there, and they got the little grocery store in there too, so you can buy
Yeah,
stuff.
really?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
expanded since I
Yes,
went over there.
Yeah, it was good.
I'm about to go to
It's
this
not
place.
bad. I hadn't
Get
been
the
there.
name.
It's
Yeah,
kind
we'll
of
have to go.
some of the places that they make in
I hadn't been there
the
in a while.
rural areas get kind of watered down
Sure.
because if you go really ethnic with the food, most Americans won't like
That's
it.
kind of how
because
Masala
the
Walk is. It's like fast food type. you know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So
So,
it's
if you really want to taste authentic and even have the environment where it's authentic, there's a place in Richardson called Afra.
Affa.
AFRAH.
Okay, I got you.
Afra.
Okay.
Now you go
Is
in
that
there.
the hookah bar and shit? Where
Yeah,
you
it's got
smoke
hookahs and
Yeah.
stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like and like literally, you walk in there, you're like, whoa, shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you literally like you walk in and everybody is Middle Eastern.
Right.
Everybody's and you got rich Middle Eastern, poor Middle Eastern, kids running around everywhere. You know, it's no different than being overseas at a restaurant.
Right.
That one down in New Orleans we went to was good too.
You
Down-
went one in New Orleans?
Yeah, when
We
where
did?
were we? Diap, I guess. It was down a dark ass alley. You don't remember? Yeah, it was a hookah bar.
How long ago was
What
that?
is? I don't remember. Well, I'll refresh your memory when I tell you what happened.
Okay.
Do
I
that
don't
off
even
camera.
remember being in New Orleans. I must have been, is it over 10 years ago?
Probably. Oh, absolutely. Was this? Yeah.
Holy shit. What we need to do is we need to do another podcast down the road and we get really deep into the whole Middle Eastern thing because I think the whole food thing, Because I'm sure there'll be a bunch of cops watching this and like, I ain't never tried that shit.
Yeah, probably.
You know what I'm saying? Get a list of like things to tell
Yeah,
people, hey,
yeah,
go
yeah.
try it. You know what I'm
Just-
saying?
just
Dude, it'd
post
be a
it.
good way because you could go in there and actually most of the people who work there, they speak English and you can engage
Right,
them
and they
you can-
do. I mean, initially we walked in, it was funny because my wife's like, "Oh shit," because everything stopped. I was like, "F this." I walked up and said, "Hey man, I want this, this, and this," and they're like, oh, "Okay." And then everybody went back to normal
Yeah.
business.
Well, and you know where that comes from? Here recently in the last 5 or 6 years, the reason why there's that hesitation and there's that distrust, like he's talking about walking into the restaurant
Yeah.
and everybody stops, because in the last 5 years, the way society has turned, every time something bad happens, the Middle Eastern, it's not even Muslim community, like the Sikhs, the Indians,
Yeah.
they're getting a run end of the deal. So it's almost like created like a mistrust,
Sure.
where if you're like a white dude or a country
Outcast.
dude, huh?
Just outcast, period. You're not part of it.
Well, I'm saying as they started thinking that everybody's racist. You see what I'm saying? And then when
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch what's going on with that Epic City.
I
Yeah,
just
go
found
to-
out about that yesterday.
Yeah,
talking
go to Facebook
Mark.
and put Epic City,
Mhm.
right? And then you'll see people making all these posts and then read the comments
Yeah.
underneath it. I mean, literally like millions of people, you know, deport them, Islam is a cancer, this and that and the other. So they're watching this go in and they'll click the profile and it'll be some white dude from East Texas. And they're
Yeah.
like, damn, all these rednecks are racist. So when they see somebody walk in with, you know, boots on and a cowboy hat, they're going to be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
they're here.
Uh-oh.
They're expecting the
Yeah.
Klan to jump out with the horses and
Yeah.
then set
Right.
fire to the whole place. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Because that's what they go back to. But then when they go, oh, I want a hummus, I want a this, they go, oh, okay, he knows us. So he's good. He's good. He's good. He likes our
He's a
food.
good one, yeah.
So he's okay.
Yeah.
He's okay. You know what I'm saying?
He walked up in here, so
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a good.
dude. It still, it all boils down to, you got to be. We're gonna result back to the Chameleon Cop and the terrorism class. It all boils down to the communication and opening up and looking at everything.
Yeah,
and
have a-
versus
have a
having tunnel
Larger
vision
worldview.
or
Larger
being
worldview.
hyper focused on stuff. Yep.
Yeah, and I think
For
that's
sure.
why. And you know what? Before we end it, I do put some blame on the Middle Eastern community, because if you look back to the history of when Muslims came here and Middle Eastern people came here, they go back to the 1800s.
Yeah.
But what has happened is they come, they slip, they go into these little pockets like Dearborn and all these, and they live in neighborhoods. It's almost like Mexicans. You know how like you got an area over here where it's like all Mexicans, like
Yeah.
everybody who comes over lives because they share the same culture.
Yeah.
But what happens, they close themselves off for the most part. And unless you meet someone who's a second or third generation that's living and working in the normal society,
Right.
you don't have any exposure to it. So they come over there and they go, but all this stuff, the shit's going on and bad things are happening. They're not saying anything because they're like, well, it's not us. We're not doing anything. I'm not doing anything wrong. They just kind of go in
Don't
a
know
hole.
any better.
They don't know any better. So then the impression that it gives to the Americans is, oh, well, they're doing it over there. We got a pocket staying over here. They're not saying anything. Silence is what? Approval.
Yeah.
Silence is approval.
Sure.
Right? You hear that all the time. When something happens, you'll hear somebody go, how come we don't hear the Muslims calling out the extremists? So if they're not calling it out, that means they believe it. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's the problem with the Islamic community is, for the most part, they haven't picked up that the American people are saying, hey, if you don't believe in it, stand up and tell us you don't believe in it, because otherwise we're going to think you believe in it. They're not clicking because they come from a different culture. And their mind is, well, it's not us. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So why am I getting blamed for it? It shouldn't be my job to do that. Right. And and I'll tell you, this is another downfall, is the Middle Eastern people expect Americans to know when the Americans don't know.
Yeah.
They're just judging based on what they're exposed to.
Which is no different from anything else other in our society. It doesn't change.
Exactly.
What part?
Exactly. That's why I spend so much
everybody lives in their communities or their own. I like to refer to it as your own pretty little world with rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah,
until something goes into that and affects it and creates a crisis, then that's absolutely the worst thing that's ever happened.
Right.
And we dwell on it, but
Right.
we're not looking at this bubble over here, this community,
Right.
and the stuff that's like 100 times worse that goes on in it. And then
Right.
it just becomes judgmental.
Yep. That's true. That's true. And everybody wants to label everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So what are we going to label this podcast?
I don't care.
Three rednecks discussing world affairs?
Yeah. Dipping Copenhagen
Stop
session.
that, sir.
three rednecks trying to educate the public.
Yeah.
By God.
For sure.
Well, I can tell you, this ain't how we've always done it.
No. Society has changed.
Absolutely.
All right, I guess we'll do another one later on. We'll get deeper into it.
We can do that.
Sounds good.
Sure enough.
Anybody want to add anything before we close it out?
Appreciate you letting me be on here.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, sir.
That's right. Here
You
about
made
2
the
years.
show.
Yeah, about 2 years, it'll be like getting a text message going, he just got 57 keys of coke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, what I want to get is like, hey, dude, he just stopped it.
I'm going to get that text that goes, I love my life.
I love my life. You're worried about the emotional part of
Yeah.
it. I'm going to get the one that says, hey, man, I just stopped the dude.
Well, the
from-"
emotional part has to do with the,
Yeah.
when we're talking about 20 being the hardest part.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that part. Yeah, that's like a compliment. Dude, if you go out there and hit 2 loads a year, you're doing good.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
telling you. If you hit 2 loads
Wow.
a year, you're doing good.
I
'Cause
think
it's-
I think a lot of times I talk and I preach and I do all this and then he's learning now
I
and he
believe
gets
you.
it.
I'm not.
And even our boss, it's the same way. It's but hearing it from you after working it, he's like, oh, okay.
I believed you when you said it. I just thought that I was gonna break that mold. For some
And you
reason.
could. You
I
very
don't know.
well.
I thought I was
You
gonna be
might
the guy.
be.
You know?
You know what? I thought the same thing when I went to highway. I was like, oh, this shit's easy, bro. Let me get up here.
Oh, I didn't think it was easy,
Yeah.
but I
I
thought
did.
I thought it was gonna be different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I thought that okay, like I've got training, I've done this stuff, I've talked to these people, like I've got the training, but it doesn't matter. As soon as they get in your car, like I said, I go, and all that goes right out the window, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what do I ask next? What do I ask next? That's
No,
literally what
it's
happens.
Literally,
yeah.
you got to flow. People ask me what kind of questions you ask. I said, I don't. I just try to cover.
There's
this
no
element.
standardized list.
You
for
get
it.
me on a
There's
street
no-
level thing, and I flow with them. I'm going back
Right.
and forth, no problem. But then you get me, and I'm like, oh, this person could be a smuggler. What do I do? Like, I don't know
Yeah,
what to do.
no. That's I got to give you that 2.0 so you
Yeah,
can take
yeah,
it because it's literally 5 elements. You got to in no chronological order.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
tried
so
to explain it to him.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
Amazing,
And
like,
it
I
took
don't
me.
listen.
No. No. It's you need to see. It's one of those things. It's kind of like it's repetition. It's just like we were talking about. We get up there, we start one way, and then we realize, okay, that way don't work. So we elevate to this level,
Yeah.
and it just all comes together till you get to the point that
Yeah, no,
it's
for sure.
okay. Now all this 9 million words or whatever, it makes sense, and okay, then you start implementing it, and it fine tunes as you go. It just does.
Have you remind me? I'll give you that Smugglers Inc. 2.0
Okay.
so you can watch it. Have you listened to the audiobook of Smugglers Inc. book?
Yeah, I have. So I did. I read Smugglers Inc. He just gave me Evading Honesty, so I'm gonna read that.
No, you read the book.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to the audiobook?
No, I'm not a big audio. I like to like.
Well, the
physically.
audiobook, I actually have a debrief of a smuggler
Oh, no
that I
shit.
caught
Yeah, it's
here.
at the end of
yeah,
it,
that's what. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what. Okay,
that's
I
what
got
I'm
you.
Special
talking
Okay,
operations of the U.S. military.
okay.
It's like a master of freaking clandestine activity,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his cherry got popped. Not that I'm a badass, I just asked the questions.
right.
And
I
he'd been
gotcha.
stopped 7 times loaded by very, very, very well-known interdiction
Oh,
guys.
I
Loaded
can't
every
imagine.
time
Yeah.
and let go with a warning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got
And
you.
that's all because I stuck with the trade craft.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Because the story made perfect sense.
I got you. Let me. I'll snag the audiobook then.
Yeah.
Listen
yeah.
to it. I didn't realize that was attached.
Yeah. It's just that section's not in the book.
I got you.
Anybody else want to say anything?
That's good.
No?
Appreciate
We'll
it.
close it off here and we'll pick it up. Next time we're filming on the other side of the pool.
We can do that too.
Or we can
just
sit over
film
there
in
under
the
that
pool.
We can do
gazebo.
that too. We can do it in the
Yeah,
pool.
let's just do
We
it.
can do it in the
Do it
pool.
in the pool.
This is electronic stuff. We're all going to be.
Elevate it. We'll run some strings.
Yeah, just hang it down. Yeah.
Umbrella drinks.
There it is. There it is.
Is it halal drink? Non-alcoholic.
Uh-huh.
You know why I say that?
They
Because
call 'em
somebody will
virgin
be
here.
watching, some of those little fanatics will be watching and say, see, he drinking alcohol. He's going to hell. You know, next thing you know, they're going to send me messages. Oh, we will find you. And I'm like, come on, text
Bring
it. Come on, Gators got to eat.
it.
Once again, you ain't gonna make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time.
I just like trolling them.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? All right.
And see, I
well,
don't have the temperament for that. That's where the interdictor breaks apart.
no,
'cause
you just have to
it
understand
becomes
the
a
culture.
certain point
You just got to
that it's
understand
just
the
like-
culture. The culture. Once you know the culture, you know exactly where to hit.
Yeah,
You know exactly where to hit.
true. I give you that.
All right. Well, we're gonna end it up. I appreciate you guys joining. Hope it was enjoyable for you guys and everybody watching. Thanks for joining, and hope to see you in the next episode. Don't know what it's gonna be about, but it'll be about something interesting.